Well, good morning, good morning, good morning. It is the 20th day of June. It is 3 minutes past the hour. Yours truly in the building, Joe Dupree from 100 BLK, the Black Station, along with my brother from another mother. You know him from the online open lines at WBLS 1075 in New York City and keeping it real with Al Sharpton. Executive producer, my brother who is multi-talented, got a lot of things going on and doing it and doing it and doing it big. Brother Fatim, how you doing this morning, Brother Fatim?
Brother, busy this morning. It is crazy. I woke up about 5, start sending you guys stuff this morning, and then I do this therapeutic thing with putting music videos out there because it's Black Music Month, and I'm glad that we were able to put something out there yesterday that we got the family very interactive. Jax will be joining us. She got a change of plans today, so even though she had planned on going camping with her husband that's dealing with a lot of kids, her schedule changed, so she's going a little earlier, so she should be joining us around 10 a.m. video wise. But we got a special guest coming up today.
Oh yeah, big show today. Big show.
Yeah.
Big show today. Listen, if you want to tell a friend, share this with a friend. Today is the show you do not want to miss. Today is the show that you do not want to miss. We are broadcasting live on Facebook Live, on YouTube Live, and on Instagram. And let me let you know exactly how to get with us on those platforms. On Instagram, we're at the JDMS, and on YouTube, we're at 100 BLK Media. Today is a show you do not want to miss. When I say you do not want to miss, this is a must-see show today. We got the man A-Time in the building. A-Time will be in the building. And family, if you are needing to get prepared for anything in any shape, form, or fashion, today's show is the show you need to listen to, where you can understand that things can happen. It can happen quick. And if you're not prepared, you will be left behind, Brother Fatim.
Yeah, so, it's going to be a conversation. I can't gather in the time that we have today the numerous conversations we've had with Brother A-Time Edwards on open line broadcast, first on 98.7 KISS FM in the New York tri-state area, now WBLS. And he'll get into it. I caught him last night getting ready to go into an emergency meeting with FEMA. That's what I'm saying. This is what I've been trying to tell folks that come on the chat, is that it's not that we're different, because I look at other programs, especially programs kind of back in the day that put this kind of information out, but A-Time is a little slightly different. It's just a little bit slightly different because he's been connected with racial organizations, hate group organizations, and things that we've been through. Because when I introduce him, because there's a lot of things that I tell y'all, he can collaborate. This was my back in the hospital. When we had to dump in the hospital, he had to move on somebody in the hospital. We don't play. When we talk this, we walk this. And we live this. And the same fight that I was in with sickle cell, his son's mother was my wife's best friend. They grew up together. And he became active in sickle cell. So he's very interesting brother. And like I said, I will introduce him when he comes on. And there's just so much to talk about, because we can talk about weather, this, that, and other, but this is more even deeper. When he drops what he's going to drop, matter of fact, he reached out to me because he wants to announce something that he's doing, because he got to prepare. This brother, and I'm just going to give you just one thing, this brother on our show on Open Line predicted before 9/11 that terrorists would possibly, he wasn't sure, but possibly we would use planes as missiles. Did they do that? He's on record of saying this. This brother put together a program where we had New York Times. We had there was a gentleman that wrote this book about Amtrak being used. That's the word. Being used.
Anthrax.
Amtrak. That's it. Amtrak.
Anthrax. Right. There you go.
Anthrax. So about this chemical, biological weapon being utilized in the subway system. We had him on. We had Reverend Sharpton on because when it came to the black community, we never prepared. We the last one to find out information.
Mm.
This is not just about weather. It's not about climate control. This is about how this country will be moving. This is a brother that talked about when we were talking about the skinheads and the Aryan nations here. He was talking about this wasn't just going to be domestically. This was a connection that was going to be global. This is why when you talk the talk, some of y'all talk out there is, when we talk Trump, it's not, this is bigger than Trump. This is not just Trump. This didn't start with Trump. I've told y'all that before. This is not something that started with him. It's just something that has been emboldened by him. That's about it. And he's given these people where they now that was hiding in the cracks, they just come more forward. What they did on January 6th, we knew that capability. That capability was honestly stronger than that. They didn't bring the forces that they had in this country to move on Washington. Washington got caught flat-footed because for a real response, if they would have came with what they could have come with, we would have had to respond with the Army. We would have had to respond with the Marines because they are well armed to the teeth. We don't understand. We think it's just about going to work, being just a good person, and kumbaya. This is deeper, way deeper than that. Y'all got to understand the power structure. What Putin and the president of North Korea getting together. These are movements, man, that these nations are making. Nations are making.
Yeah.
Making, and y'all don't think because sometimes because you're not part of these conversations, you don't understand where it's at. And then you'll say, oh, we're trying to cause a panic attack. We're not trying to cause a panic attack. What we're trying to tell you is that you need to prepare and be aware. Some things you can't even just prepare for, Joe.
Well, brother Fatim, not to go cliche-ish, but Sucker Free said it best. If you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. So we're going to be having that conversation. It's 11 minutes past the hour. Let me ring the bell. Let me give a round of applause on this 20th day of June, which is Turn Up Thursday, Turn Down for What. If today is your special day, your birthday, your anniversary, your work celebration day, you just got your job, this is your work anniversary day, whatever special day it is, we're ringing the bell and we're giving you a round of applause because today is your day. And we want to tell you that we are celebrating it also with you. I want to say this. And it is getting toward the summertime. The official day of summer will be tomorrow, but it's getting hot. And we talk about it all the time, even though we're bringing Aton on here. Family, we got to put the guns down. There is a lot of unnecessary gun violence going on in our communities. Too much, way too much. Even in these small rural communities in the South, like the one that I happen to work in policing. Too much gun violence. We already had just a few days ago 2 individuals injured in a random drive-by. So family, we got to do better. Not only do we have to do better, there are laws that are getting ready to come out, and a lot of folks I think still don't have a clear understanding of the laws. The laws are not flooding. Listen, people who want to do bad things, who do illegal things, will do illegal things without laws being in place. That's why they're criminals. They don't adhere to the law. They don't adhere to the law. What you need to know is the law for yourself. In Louisiana, we have a stand your ground law, a stand your ground law that's really more potent than the stand your ground law in Florida. And they just yesterday signed in that in every public school, the 10 commandments will be hanging up. I don't. Somewhere I thought that there was supposed to be a separation between church and state. And I'm not trying to be ugly when I say that. The reason I'm saying that, and I have absolutely nothing wrong with the 10 commandments. However, what happened? Your religious belief is not that of the evangelical backing. What happened? It's, I don't know. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I am saying it.
I am.
Hold it. But I am saying it is a thing where there was supposed to be a separation. The founding fathers said we're going to separate church and state. And now we're hanging the 10 commandments up in all the public schools. So what are we doing? Are we literally, here's my question. Does that go, are we hanging it up in the schools just for the kids? Or is it for the kids and the faculty? Is it, and what is it? Because there's a lot of 10 commandments, there's thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not put no other God before me. Thou shalt not commit adultery. So we've got these rules hanging in the school, but what do we explain to the kids when they say, "What happens if I break one of these rules?" Go ahead, brother Fatigue. Go ahead.
It's a bunch of BS. It's a bunch of BS, and it's just a smokescreen because it's just what is called get back at the left. So with the LGBTQ plus community, with that out there and other issues out there with abortion, this, that, and other, this is what is called get back. It's about taking their country back and taking it back to the way they want it to be. That's what it is about. We can sit here and talk about, you're infringing on people's rights. For Louisiana to do that is a bunch of crap, and it's going to be challenged in court. You can't do that with, I got to get tired of saying the founding fathers, because the founding fathers were racist bastards and slave owners. So I'm not giving it, they were racist bastards and slave owners. So we have to call a spade a spade. And, I'm telling you, this is get back. And I would rather have seen them come together with a multi group of people in a sense of teachers, parents, and students and say, this is what we would like to do. We would like to look at different school districts and put our heads together and not say we will put the 10 commandments out there, but we would put 10 bullet points or 10 points out there of things that we should strive for. And I think that wouldn't have had that negative overtone, and it would show that we're working together as a community. But no, this is to try to force something else down your throat. And, just like, I did understand. So I thought some of the LGBTQ stuff was also being shoved down people's throats. You understand what I'm saying? When it came to the bathrooms, I think that if you want to identify a certain way, then they should have been something that should have been a facility that was made for that, for that individual that identifies that way, for a bathroom where they can go and they feel comfortable. But I do understand a parent that has a son or a daughter don't want the other sex because that's how they feel or want to identify with, to infringe on their rights. That's also being shoved down people's throats. But this is what I'm saying. This is where it's going to lead, because people are angry, Joe. We're getting emotional about this. And I'm telling you, the difference now, and I say this, that's why I said what I said last week, but a couple of weeks ago, but I take it back because I don't want to offend anybody when I use the term country bumpkin. What I'm saying, you talk about region, since you bring it up in region.
Oh yeah,
You bring it up regions, but there are people, there are some people that come along to get along, the Tim Scotts and this, that, and other. But there's a lot of black people, y'all white folks that are in power, that think y'all are going to make us buck and bow. That you got another thing coming. And that's the problem. They haven't seen our anger. See, that's why remember, they always said if we came into power, they scared that if we came into power, we would do to them what they did to us. Right? You understand? But you've never saw our whole wrath on this nation as a collective. You keep pushing us into a corner. We're gonna come out, and don't come, and then and any damn leader, any leader, civil rights, whatever kind of leader that comes to try to squash it, better squash it now, because when we rise up, it's too late. Because we're not going to be backed into a corner. We're not going back to them days and all that bowing and shucking and jiving and trying to get along, to go along. That's not going to happen.
Well, Brother Fatim, we say it all the time, and I think we're preaching to the choir mostly. but we have black faces in high places with no power. And this is where, family, we collectively have to get to a place where we understand the power of us collectively working together, especially in voting individuals in the office. We got to stop voting folks in just because they're our friend, just because they talk a good talk. We went to high school with them. They're our cousin. We know them. They're from around the way. We've got to start electing folks in who will bring about results, positive results for the greater good of all of us. See, here's the sad things. Most black folks that are in politics and most black folks that are politicians, they help their friends and their family and then a few folks around them. But everybody don't get help. And that's why we are suffering. That's why when you look at our communities, they look totally different than some of these non-melanated, highly conservative communities. They don't even want us to buy houses in their community. And there's supposed to be a fair housing act, but they will, listen, they will do everything in their power, working with the realtors and whatever, to make sure that if their communities are non-melanated, lily white communities, that they stay that way. And the ones of us they do let in are the ones of us who have sold us out most of the time. Most of the
Yeah.
time.
So,
Those are just those facts. I'm sorry.
yeah.
Those are the facts.
So there's another thing that we're misguided on,
Talk
not
to me.
mistaken on, but we're misguided on.
Talk to me.
Um, is that we keep throwing voting out there like that's it. And when I say it, it's like that's the ends, that's the end goal. And voting is just one part of the equation to get to that power you want.
But
And the
it's a big
bottom
part.
line is
It's a
right
big
because
part. It's a big part,
they
Fatigue.
and we look at the body. We can say the brain, the heart. Some of them are big parts. The bottom line is for us to move as a collective. We look at the power in this country, who controls the power, and they still had to fight to get certain things back to the way they want. They had to fight for that. So what I'm saying is, I'm not underestimating voting. What I'm saying is we tend to elevate voting to the point that people feel like all they got to do is pull a lever and then go back home and then they go to sleep, Joe. That's
Oh, no,
what
no,
our
no, no,
problem
no,
is.
no,
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 let me
no. We
just
can't do
finish.
that.
Let
You're
me
right.
finish there. That's why I said we're misguided, because we have to understand the equation of power. We just talked about this. I just read you what Black Solidarity Day meant and what that talked about in a sense of pride, but it also talked about economic power, boycott power. It's a lot of things that we can do out there that is part of the whole grand scheme. But since it's a voting year of a president, and because of what Trump has did in the past, and he's running again, and Joe Biden being older, and there's other issues out there, has become even more polarized under this racist climate here. But what I'm saying is we push voting, and I'm telling you, I watch people, they feel like that's all I gotta do on the grand scheme things, because they feel what you just said. It's a major part. It's an important part, but we have to discuss what power is and how do we attain it in different areas to become stronger as a collective in this country. That's what we got to have that conversation about and do.
Brother Fatim, the reason I say it is a big part and it is an important part, in my opinion. Now, this is where we may vary. Understand, you cannot, if the people who formulate the laws that literally make it that you can't unite, you can't meet on certain things. You got to understand, this is how important voting is. People that you vote into office are the people who make the laws of not only the land, they make the laws of your city, they make the laws of your county or a parish. If you live in Louisiana, we're the only people who are just different than anybody else in the United States of America. If you, they make the laws of the region. They make the laws of the country. Understand, if they make a law and say you can't meet about this subject or this situation, they have already in Louisiana, watch this. In Louisiana, they have already passed a law that in school, you have to be addressed by how you were born. So if you identify, if you are a part of the LGBTQ plus A community, I think I got all the alphabets right. And you say, man, I don't identify as this. I feel that I'm that. They can't call you what you, even if your parents go to the school and say, listen, my son wants to be addressed as she and her, little miss or whatever. No, that's illegal now. You can't do that. What's the school can say what's on the birth certificate. If it's a he on the birth certificate, that's what it's going to be. If the little girl comes and say, no, I identify as a boy. No, 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 no. What is it on the birth certificate? If it's not that, see, so that's where voting is important, because now you have people who have put laws in place that can literally down quell whatever uprising you're trying to do. And sometimes we've got to understand we need the proper people in place that at least give us an even playing field. At the end of the day, they can put laws down. They can put, listen, sadly enough, and this was called on me last night, they can put a law in place and say, you know what? We don't like what they're talking about on hashtag truth be told. We don't like it. It doesn't serve Project 2025. It doesn't serve our agenda. And they can put laws in place to say, y'all got to shut that mess down. Y'all got to shut that down.
So again, this is no disrespect with what I'm going to say to you, Joe, but I don't think you heard me. I said that we continue to talk about voting so much that it becomes almost the all when we talk about power. It is important. I don't disagree with anything that you're saying, but what I'm saying is that we need to have more conversations about what real power is. And bring that in.
Correct.
Right. So I never excluded that. I never belittled it. I never said that. But what I'm saying is how we are misguided as voting is like we put all our energy in there to the point that we don't put energy other places to also build power. We just like if we have to build power in the sense of protecting our community, that's another form of power. That's what I'm saying. If we got to bring corporate power in the sense of having more corporate organization and money and foundation, that's another form of power. Voting is another form of power. And what happens is that we sometimes get on one thing and think that's it. And that's not just it. So I didn't belittle it at all. I agree. That's why I just didn't say, because it's not about a disagreement. And I'm not elevating. I know what the purpose of it is. But I'm just saying, when you elevate yourself in those other areas, then I hate to say this, they can't create them laws because you are the one that are dictating, because they coming to you because you're the one that has the voting power in your region.
Right. And you're absolutely correct. And family, we've got to stop taking this personal and start looking at the policies. Start asking yourself, who has the policies that benefit you, your family, your children, and your belief system? Who has the policies? And those are the people you need to back. And you need to understand something. Many a times what we don't understand, nor do we want, and we shuck and jive about this all the time, because we got too many sellouts in our community. We got way too many sellouts. We got folks that try to convince you that certain folks are really for you when they're not for you. And beware those who look like you, because all skin folk ain't kinfolk.
That's the problem, Joe.
That's the problem. Folk ain't kinfolk.
Well, no, not that part. Again, this is not about disagreeing with Joe this morning. I'm just trying to set this straight and just to try to change how we look at things. It is personal, Joe. That's the problem. We don't look at it personal. That's why we do some of the stuff, because when we don't look at it personal, sometimes we don't see it how it affects us because we think it doesn't affect us. when we look at things personal, even if it doesn't affect us directly, it affects us indirectly. So
Right.
that's
The
why
greater
we
good.
need to. That's why when you said we shouldn't take it personally, no, we should take it personal. Because when we take it personal, we take a more interest in it. We take a more interest in it. Now it's personal to us. That's why I'm saying how we say things, how we manifest things, we even have to redirect how we even
So,
think now
so,
of dealing with the problems that we have in front of us because we've never dealt with some of the
so
issues that we are dealing with today.
and I agree with that. And I see in the green room we have
Oh,
brother
yeah.
Edwards, Brother Edwards in the green room. So we'll be bringing him on momentarily. Be exact in about a minute at the 30. What I'm really saying, and let me give some clarity to this because the English language sometimes is because, as you say, it is a mutt language. It is misconstrued.
Mhm.
One word might have 17 different meanings. When I say don't take it personal, I'm saying don't get your feelings so involved in it that you don't see the truth. See, sometimes we get so caught up in our feelings, we don't see the truth. See, facts, feelings, and hearsay. I have a simple formula. Stick to the facts, stay out your feelings, and don't listen to hearsay. If you do that, 90% of your issues you'll be all right in. And speaking of which, let's bring a ray of sunshine into this equation. Hey, there she is, our life strategist, our art therapist, our speaker, our author, who's about to unmute her mic. She's in the building. It is the one and only Miss Jax herself. Hey, Jax.
What's up, family? Great conversation. I'm loving it. I was listening to it as I was preparing to hit the highway to go on a camping trip with about 55 children. And so it's gonna be an overnight camping trip, but you guys are definitely on point. So I'm excited to jump in and get in with the conversation.
So, Brother Fatim, since I got
Yes,
him in
sir.
the green room, it
Mhm.
is 30. It is the 30. We need to go ahead and bring him on. It's going to be a big show. We don't have enough time to keep this brother on the show. I want to get every second I can get out this brother. Go ahead and introduce Brother Eitan Edwards that's in the green room where we can bring him on.
All right. So Eitan Edwards is he is the founder and he is the current executive director of the International Preparedness Network (IPN). He is an expert in the fields of self-reliance, emergency preparedness, and sustainable living. Eitan is also the author of Preparedness Now, an emergency survival guide, which is an expanded and revised edition out there. Process self-reliance. He's also working on something called Afro Prep, in a sense of preparedness for the Black community. So with that being said, and this is a copy of his book, let's bring on Brother Eitan Edwards to hashtag truth be told. Good morning, my brother. Peace to you, Brother Eitan.
Hey, Brother Fatim. Peace to you and peace to Brother Joe and Sister Jax there. Hope you all are having a good morning today so far.
There
Good
you
morning,
go.
Brother Edwards. Good morning.
Thank you.
So, I can jump right on in here, but I got to start here because, I talk about Eitan a lot. Eitan's a personal friend. And, a lot of things I talk about, some things, and I'm not talking about my team. I'm talking about some people in the chat that don't know me, that, sometimes you may say, oh, Fatim has been in the truth. This brother knows me. This brother knows what I stand on with sickle cell. He knows the fight. He knows the fight that we had because his son's mother was my wife, Hanifa's best friend. They grew up in the same hospital. This brother had to move on somebody that said something disrespectful to his son's mother dealing with sickle cell. The battles. I remember, and we'll get into this a little later, how serious this brother is. He was putting on a play. He informed the police department in Harlem that we were going to do a demonstration. We were going to do it with live weapons in Harlem, down 125th Street, but we was going to remove the firing pin so they couldn't fire. But the police moved on us anyway. They arrested one of our members, Big Paul. Rest in peace, Big Paul. Paul is not here. Paul was head of Register of Security. You got arrested as well. You understand? This is the brother, when I mentioned about the racist groups, the skinheads, the Aryan Nation, this is the brother that has met with them, had conversations with them. This is the things that I've been telling you on this show that some of you put in the chat that I just said you just don't know. I've talked about when COVID started, he only picked a selected few to be part of the group because we didn't know what COVID was. If we had to go out there and live on the land, we had doctors, we had nurses. He brought us in because of Hanifa, because of the sickle cell, making sure that we had what's right. You got to realize, and Joe, you're a military man. You're a retired vet. It's certain things that we could not get when it comes to pharmaceutical products. But Aton had part of this network. Aton talked about dome housing in a sense of dealing with the climate. We talked about all of this. We talked about chemical and biological weapons being utilized in urban cities like New York City, like Chicago, like Atlanta. I mentioned earlier on the show, this is the brother before 9/11 said on our program that the terrorists may use planes as missiles. We stood toe to toe on some of the things we can't mention on this show. So today, brother, and then last night, and I'll let you get into it because you know where it's at. You had what is considered, I guess it was an emergency meeting with FEMA, and like you said, you call it the alphabets, FBI, CIA last night, about some of the things that are getting ready to possibly go down because of the chatter out there. With that being said, I'm going to throw it to you, Brother Aton, and let you take it from there. In a sense, I want you, this is not, our New York audience. So a lot of information that you've talked about on Open Line, some of the folks that are with us that have been there, they have the information, but a lot of them don't. But I want you to kind of bring us up to speed of where we are at in the climate of this country under systemic racism, under this racist climate out here. I want you to talk about that. Brother Aton.
Well, first of all, brother, I want to thank you for the props. I mean, we go back so long. At this point, we go back so far now. I don't even want to talk about how many years it is. But I'm going to just start off, and as I wrote to you in that note last night, I'm going to begin with this very sobering fact that in my assessment, my personal assessment and my informed position is that we are in a worse position. I don't mean just Black folk. I don't mean just our people. I mean the planet. I believe that we're in a as worse a position that we've ever been in. Maybe within, not to go as far. I don't want to overstate or understate what I'm saying. I just want to be very accurate. So I'll say this. I believe that right now, this period of history that we're in right now is the most dangerous period that humanity has ever faced, maybe since the Ice Age, maybe since the Pleistocene era, right? That's how serious it is. And that's because we've come to this kind of like point where crossroads, in a sense, right? We have so many different problems that are all happening at one time that, and we're not, and we don't have like the strategies that we have in place to deal with any of these problems at all. Yeah, right. And I don't know, Fatine, if you knew that what my favorite poet, William Butler Yeats, right? And he wrote a poem called The Second Coming. And in that poem, he said at one point that the center does not hold. And what we're finding now is that the center doesn't hold. And by the center, I mean governments and all of the rest, right? Not only do we have the crisis, the climate crisis to deal with, right? That in itself is just this big, huge problem that is so interconnected with so many other different things, right? That it has to do not just with the climate, but it has to do with emerging diseases. Like I'm going to give you an example. Because of the climate crisis, the global temperature has raised. Now, what is one of the problems that happens with the global temperature rising? Well, one of the biggest problems is that the Arctic, so we have the permafrost and we have the ice in the Arctic begins to melt. Now, most of the time when people speak about this, we speak about it in the context of, oh, it's going to rise, the oceans are going to rise. But from my perspective, what I speak about with the Arctic ice and permafrost melting are the different pathogenic organisms that are layered in the ice, that when the ice melts, a lot of these organisms, a lot of these viruses that humanity has not been exposed to for hundreds of years, in some cases, thousands of years, right? They become re-exposed to the world. They become distributed by animals who come into contact with them. Case in point, several years ago in Siberia, there was a Russian hunting party with a lot of kids and a lot of people going to hunt reindeer and things like that. And what they came across were the carcasses of a number of, I don't know if it was reindeer or like deer or whatever it was. And there were a bunch of animal carcasses that had been defrosted because of the permafrost melting. And what they came into contact with was they came into contact with anthrax. Now, anthrax is a naturally occurring organism. It's something that, you know, that animals, a lot of sheep and different animals like that can have it in their lungs and in their bodies. And they came across the spores. They took the spores back to their village, and a number of them died because they'd been exposed to this anthrax. Now, there's not just anthrax that you have to worry about, naturally occurring anthrax. There are also a number of different viruses that the Arctic ice is almost certainly trapped, like, for instance, the avian flu that was called the Spanish flu that killed 675,000 Americans back in 1918, maybe killed over 100 million people worldwide. You can also assume that there are other similar viruses in the Arctic that are even more virulent than the actual the avian flu that killed the people in 1918. Now, that's just one problem that comes with the climate crisis and global warming. So let's kind of like turn back around to some of the other things that are happening right now. Geopolitically, we see what's happening in Gaza. We see what happened in Rafah. We see what's happening with Israel. We see what's happening with Lebanon. And we see that this conflict in Israel, which is really not very much of a conflict, it's more like a genocide against the people, triggered by Sinwar, that atrocious attack that they staged in October the 7th has now become, in response, an even more atrocious situation with this genocidal assault against these like innocent Palestinians who really at the same don't have anything to do with Hamas. But the fact of the matter is the escalation of this conflict, as it were, has provoked Hezbollah, which is right on the border with Lebanon. And there's a distinct possibility that we could see a larger conflict grow, a regional conflict grow, if Israel and Lebanon get into it. And then you're going to have Hezbollah, the full weight of Hezbollah, who's backed by Iran. So we're talking about the distinct possibility of a regional conflict there. Just the other day, we just saw Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un getting together and having a nice little party in North Korea and signing an agreement where they're going to work together if either one of the nations is attacked, and both of the nations will work together and fight against whatever the common enemy is. You know, we're the common enemy. We have all of the different situations. We have the border, which is porous. We know what's happening at the southern border. Now, besides the people who are the economic migrants that are coming from Latin America and some of the other places around the world seeking asylum, but there are also other people who are coming across that border who are, you could say, enemies of the state. These are people who are bad actors, people who are coming here with bad intentions. Now, at this point, they're already here. They've already embedded themselves in cities. They've already had actionable plans to doing things that they wanted to do. This is why you have the FBI director coming forward. And Fatin, you know that before 9/11, because we used to talk about this, just to let you guys know, Fatin and I were talking about 9/11 way before 9/11 happened, right, Fatin?
That's correct.
Remember, I was talking about the World Trade Center being attacked, yada, yada, yada. We used to have these conversations on the side, and this is what we need to do, yada, yada, yada. But if you notice, Fatin and Joanne Jacks, you didn't have the FBI director stepping forward at the time, telling people, hey, you better watch out for this kind of terrorism because it's going to happen. Remember, there was nothing said, right?
Right.
Nobody said a word to the American public about these threats. Now, people within that circle knew that these threats were real. They all knew that this could happen, but people outside, the American people, had no clue that there was a distinct possibility that the United States was going to be attacked. And the FBI knew this, but they kept it quiet. Now the FBI is stepping forward to tell you on the legacy media, hey, you better be concerned because we are going to be attacked, that all of the buttons and all of the lights are flashing. We are going to be attacked. And the fact of the matter is, they're right. Not only are we going to see an attack, that is probably, as the deputy director of the FBI recently stated, that it's 9/11 2.0. I'm not going to talk about what could happen, but because it would be irresponsible of me to do that in any kind of a public forum, because we kind of know what could happen. But let me tell you that some of the things that are being planned and some of the things that are being discussed by this type of element could cripple a city, could cripple the economy. And most importantly for me, outside the American people, it would devastate our community. We don't have any stopgaps in place, y'all. There's nothing in place for us, right? And let me tell you something, that FEMA and all of the emergency response mechanisms that the United States has in place, they just don't have the capabilities to deal with the situations and circumstances that are going to arise. I want to say that again. They don't have the ability to deal with all of the situations and circumstances that are going to arise over the course of the next few years. I want you to all understand this, right? And I don't want to come at you this hard, but I don't know any other way to do it at this point, because our people are in dire straits. This is serious business. And so I reached out to Fatim, and we spoke last night, and I was telling him, look, man, we're kind of in the same position that we were in February 2001, because that's when I'd come on the open line and I spoke about, it was a caller, Fatim. I don't know if you remember the exact day, but I remember it because you remember how I used to get annoyed with some of the callers.
I do the same thing with some of the people in our chat. Trust me.
Well, y'all know what that's like. Y'all have people, right?
They do.
Jackson, y'all know how that gets.
We know.
I see why y'all are friends. I see why you guys are friends.
Yeah. I would be like, oh man, I'd be sitting there with Fatim, rolling my eyes, and Bob and Pickett and Mtume, and I'd be just like, oh, and then Bob would look at me and say, and then Fatim, okay, Tom, just chill out. And I'd be just like, oh my God. So one day a caller calls up the show and says, well, one of the sisters, and which, you have respect for them when they are respectful. You know what I mean? But she was kind of annoyed with me. She's annoyed with all of us. And she says, well, you've been coming on this show all these years and talking about all this stuff, and ain't none of it happened yet. And so why do you think that this is going? And I said, because it's persistent, because these people, because they had attacked the World Trade Center in 1993. And it was like, okay, well, they already done attacked the World Trade Center. What makes you think they're going to do it again? I said, because they're persistent. And then I went into the whole thing about, they could use a tactical nuke, or maybe they could do like what a terrorist group in France was going to do, attack the Eiffel Tower with jumbo jets. And they could crash a jumbo jet into the side of the building. And then I also said it would probably happen the second week of September. It would happen at 9 in the morning, wow. Right? All of this was said on the open line. And then Fatim and Bob and the rest of them got hit with Mayor Giuliani's attack dog. Who was it? Sonny Mandel, right? Or whoever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've done that before. I mean, then we came on, spoke about how so we're in this same position now. This is what's happening right now. And I just want to stress to our people, our communities, we have to we have to kind of break away from the mindset that the government's entities are going to deal with these situations when they arise. No, we have to now build our own emergency response mechanisms. We have to build, and I mean just from the ground up. Now, obviously, you can't build an infrastructure. And if you want me to give you a date, I'm going to tell you that we're going to see something. I believe that we're going to see something within the next 3 to 5 months in the United States, probably before the election, right? Probably before the election. I can say that it could come in the form of just something very, very basic, where you have a terrorist who just use rifles and guns to go and assault people on the streets and just to get up a body count to stoke fear. They can use trucks. That's another way that they could do it. They can use, again, high explosives and some of the other things that are being discussed, which I won't talk about in public. They may do that. The one thing that I will talk about in public, that because I can talk about some of it. For instance, the use of a radiological weapon. Now, what is a radiological weapon, right? That's a dirty bomb. One of the things that I want to do is destroy the misconceptions about what a radiological weapon and a nuclear weapon is. It's two different things. One, they use radiation, but a radiological weapon is not that. And one of the reasons I want to talk about this is because I don't want people to panic if it actually is used. So terrorist groups for a long time have been talking about using radiological weapons. It is a weapon of terror. It is a weapon of chaos, but it is not a weapon of mass destruction. And effectively, what a radiological weapon is a high explosive that's blanketed with radioactive material, right? Like you have isotopes that, like cobalt-60, because cobalt-60 is an isotope that's used to for food irradiation. When you basically have food irradiation that destroys bacteria, you use cobalt-60. That's the isotope that's used to do it. Now, in a lot of cases, the hospitals that have radiological materials in a lot of different places that actually irradiate food, they don't have security. They don't have the things that you think to protect these spaces to get this stuff. So you can have a terrorist group that can come in and walk into the United States, walk into a hospital, walk in and get radiological material. And then what happens? Wrap that in a high explosive and you detonate a bomb. Now, maybe the people in the immediate proximity of the explosion of the bomb, they'll be hurt, they'll be killed. But generally speaking, what happens is in the cloud and the plume that follows from the explosion, the radiological material, the radioactive material gets spread in that cloud and it settles all over the city. So what happens is it stokes fear, it stokes panic, and it stokes chaos. The amount of radiation that a radiological weapon produces is minimal, right? So you can't really get very sick unless you even inhale the particulate. And even then, it's not that hot, unless they were using something like plutonium. And in God forbid if that ever would have happened, because 100 pounds of plutonium can kill every human on the planet if it were dispersed properly. But the fact of the matter is, that's also being discussed. Now, our community, because our community is extremely vulnerable for many different reasons, not only for the fact that we are dependent on the system to help us when these things happen, but we also have to deal with this one situation. And please, I want you all to chime in on it because we got to have this conversation. Right now in New York City, we have about maybe 200,000. Most of the people are economic migrants. Some of them are actually fleeing terror and all of that kinds of stuff. But for the most part, most of the people coming from Latin America are coming for jobs. They're coming, they're economic migrants looking to seek work in the United States. I don't know for where the Chinese that are coming across the border, I don't know what they're here for. We know what the Haitians are here for because they actually are conditions that merit asylum, and also the Africans that are coming and some of the others from other countries. But unfortunately, when you have a population of people within like our major cities like New York, Denver, Chicago, and places like that, who are completely, for the most part, dependent upon the system for every mode of sustenance, for their food, their water, for their money. When a disaster strikes, right, a major catastrophe, a major calamity, then the supportive mechanisms that they rely upon kind of like dissolve, and everybody winds up on the same boat. And at the end of the day, they are not going to be going to Park Avenue and affluent areas of the city in New York anyway for help. They're going to be coming to the Black community, and they're going to be coming to the brown community, the communities that don't have anything already, and they're going to have even less when these emergencies strike. So we have to start building mechanisms now for us, by us. We have to FUBU it. Because if we don't, what's going to happen is, listen, let me tell you something. I tell this to a lot of people that I've trained. Everybody don't get on a lifeboat. Remember that movie Titanic? Everybody don't get to be in a lifeboat. That's the reality. You know who gets to be on a lifeboat? The people who built the lifeboat, the people who know where the lifeboat is, the people who put the struggle in to get the lifeboat set and that be ready and stand by and having that lifeboat available. So now we have to start building lifeboats in our community immediately. And that is in our churches. I'm talking about food banks for now. I want y'all to see where I really want y'all to chime in with this, because really, we all got to be human beings at the top of this, right? We're all human beings on this planet, but we have to do for self at this point. Nobody else is going to do for us, and they're going to come to us for help, right? We have to help ourselves first. And so the first thing we got to do is we got to start getting emergency food banks together. And I'm not talking about community emergency food banks for everybody. I'm talking about for churches, for groups, for buildings. We have to do that because if the government has this situation that they've created, that they didn't close the borders in the way that they needed to, they didn't set up mechanisms for these people to come in a dignified manner. They lied to them. They put them in these cities. They jammed them up in these spaces. There's no English as a second language classes. Nobody's learning how to even communicate. So then you put cities, you prop these people in, like New York, some of the most expensive cities in the country, and you don't have the supportive mechanisms in place for them to, first of all, how are you going to come? You don't have an education. You can't speak the language. You don't know the culture. But all of a sudden, you're going to get an apartment in New York City where the average rent is over $3,000 a month, right? Like, I'm gonna give you, my son has an 800 something credit score, and getting an apartment for him, he's an IT professional, is difficult. So if you're coming from one of these countries and you don't have a college education, you don't have a high school education, you don't speak the language, you don't know the culture, outside of a delivery job, there's really very little else that you can do. But the job that you can get, it's not the kind of job where you can afford New York rents or Chicago rents or Los Angeles rents or Denver rents. So what is going on in this country? So the people that are coming, we have to recognize that we are in a situation where our government does not have answers, and we as Black people have to build our own supportive mechanisms so that we can deal with ourselves when these disasters come, because they are coming. Trust me. And we've got to do everything that we can within this next 3 to 5 month space. Otherwise, we're going to be caught out there. So please chime in if you guys have any solutions with the humanitarian aspect of this in terms of what we need to do. Please tell me, because I don't really even know.
Well, let me just say this. So I'll throw out something. So right now, folks are hearing what you're saying in the chat. And the first thing is probably on their mind, what can they do? Because we talked about this before, Eitan, about getting out of like New York City, some of the big cities, especially on the Eastern Seaboard, because we understood and understand that the Eastern Seaboard is a target. Of course, we saw it when New York City was targeted, Washington, D.C. was targeted. And we talked about how, when you just talk about two catastrophes, you take out the Brooklyn Bridge and you take out the Golden State Bridge, this economy will tank. It will tank. Two bridges go down, the economy would tank. And not only, remember, this is not just domestically, everything is connected internationally. Just like we haven't even got into the racism part of it. You used to talk about how we looked at the Aryan nation, we look at some of the hate groups in this country, how they were connected with other international groups, that this was not just something domestically, but this is something that's internationally grown. But some of the things you just mentioned, because we could break it down. The first thing is, let's put it in layers terms, because we talk about if it's a hurricane. Joe is in Louisiana and they deal with inclement weather, but this whole country is dealing with that kind of situation. And we talked to my family and I was like, if our cell phones go down, what do? They don't know what to do. I was like, y'all, do we have walkie-talkies? Do we have this? Can you just at least give some of the basics on something that, without this catastrophe situation, but on some of the things that we experience now that they can start to build that they're not really seeing today? that they should have some of these, like you call it what do you call it? We call it a go bag, but you call it a bug out bag, right?
Bug out bag.
Jacks, right?
Yes.
You know, but just like when 9/11 happened, you didn't know what it was. You went in the house, put your gas mask on, and went back out on the terrace. You was prepared, always prepared. He always walked with his bag, always walked with it, ready to go. You understand? So can you talk about on just like weather or whatever, what some people should be starting to look at that you talk about in this book? You're working on Afro Prep, that book to help us in the community to start to really show folks that how you think you may be prepared or how you think you should get prepared, you really don't have the proper knowledge. And that's why we brought you on here.
Well, let me say this, just to be clear, I'm going to give you some tips. And one of the reasons that, in reaching out to you, Fatim, and to do this show and also doing the open line on Sunday, I kind of had been compelled to accelerate something that I was planning to do this fall, and national disaster preparedness. This wouldn't usually come on the show in the fall and talk about what's going to happen, that kind of thing. But I kind of accelerated it because of this situation, because I felt that things were getting so bad that I needed to kind of move forward. I was working on a project with my son, Amen, about the development of emergency shelter for a lot of the different people that are coming into the city, for the migrant population, people in the Congo. And so Amen and I were designing these collapsible emergency shelters that people can use that are actually sustainable, at 100% sustainable, made from plastic. They can be folded and they can be moved. And so we're working on that. And I kind of thought that I'd be able to get to September and kind of make these big announcements. So I decided to step forward because I'm doing this class on the 29th of this month. And essentially in that class, it's like a 5-hour class on that Saturday that kind of explains the breakdown of what people need to do, just all of the emergency stuff that people need to do. But in a summary, I'll give you the information about that class shortly. In summary, what I'm going to do is to break down what are the most important things that the community is going to need to do. Number one is emergency food, right? You got to have emergency food. It's simply, without that, then you are going to become dependent on the system to find it, because there are distinct possibilities where food deliveries, as you just mentioned, in terms of even bridges, right? And I was talking about this last night. One of the worst things that happened, even though it was an accident, was that collision of that barge into the bridge. What was it, in near Baltimore, right? Because it showed any terrorist organizations just how easily it is to cripple a city with an accident like that. And the value of a target, like let's say the George Washington Bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge, the Verrazano Narrows, and all of the different big spans that we have in the United States. And I was talking about that yesterday. It's like how it doesn't take much in terms of to take down a structure like that. As we saw with the Alfred P. Murrah building back in 1995, when that group blew up the FBI building. Remember when they blew up the building with a truck filled with high explosives? And the same kind of thing could happen in any city, and you could cripple a city economically. So once a city's crippled economically, once deliveries shut down, you might not be able to get the kind of food that you need from the supermarket for sustenance. In a lot of cases, people don't have 2 days worth of food in their home, right? People don't, and again, non-perishable food items, not the stuff that you put in the refrigerator, but this is the stuff that you can put up on the shelf and let it sit there for months if you had to. So we have to start getting food stored away. We have to start storing away our food. We also have to not only have emergency water in our homes, but we also have to have the ability to purify or filter the water if we can't store it. And in a lot of cases, I hear a lot, in the prepping community, because I don't teach prepping, by the way. I teach a discipline that I created. It's called IA, improvisational adaptation, which is I call the 21st century science of life protection. And because it is a science, in order for you to do this the proper way, then you have to kind of master it in a different way. And the problem with prepping is prepping directs you towards things. Buy this, buy that, do this, do that. It's not the way it works. The way that it works is what you have here. It's not what you can buy. You understand? So the thing is, from my standpoint, you have to not just have an emergency water supply, but you also have to have the ability to filter the water. Also, everything is wrong. Like I'm going to give you, for instance, in my book that Fatine has, in Preparedness Now, and that's the last book. Yeah, that one exactly. That's the last one. I had. This is the next book I have. Afro Prep Now is the third of a trilogy. The first was a book called Urban Survival Manual. That was 2003. The second was Preparedness Now, 2005, and the third and the last of the series is Afro Prep Now, and that's for us. And commonly, the government will tell you that the amount of water that you need per day is, you need a gallon of water so that you can drink a half gallon, 1 gallon of water per person per day, right? And I can tell you that we, within this field in disaster management, we knew that that's not enough and it's just the bare minimum of water. But we did it because, quite frankly, in a lot of cases, when you say more, then you don't want to be alarmist. But I can tell you that the United Nations knew what the real amount that you need, right? And if you want to get down to your basic needs, not only for drinking, but for cooking and for sanitation, it would be 3.5 gallons of water that you need per person per day, or like 14 liters. That's how much you really need per day to keep yourself clean, to cook your food, and to drink it. So you have to have the ability to purify water when the public utilities and water filtration plants and water treatment plants go down, because they will. Just keep in mind that, like, again, there's so much. This is why I have to do this class, because there's so much to cover. And this is why the class is long, that you have to be informed about the details. We have a number of different hacking groups. One of them that got a little publicity, which is this group called Scattered Spider, that's working with a number of different Russian organizations. Scattered Spider is, for the most part, a bunch of American kids in their basements, in their rooms, coalescing with Russians and North Koreans that they don't even know, that have nothing but bad intentions for the United States. So one of the primary targets for a lot of these hacking groups are water treatment plants.
Yeah.
Right? That's one of their primary targets. And why? Because what I can tell you is, did you realize that the mixture of chlorine and the mixture of chemicals that they use in the water to treat it, if you change that mixture, you can actually poison and kill people on a huge scale. So what you got to understand is that you not only have to have stored water that you have in your home, but you also have to have the ability to purify or filter the water just in case you don't have stored water. So these are the other things. Then you have to have the ability to, emergency power. You have to have the ability to move from your location, and, like what Fatine says, go bags or grab and go bags and things like that. But even those have to be done in a certain way, simply because there's so many dynamics involved in even having one of those things and going into an emergency evacuation center. And Brother Joe, you're down there in New Orleans. I was down there for the actual crisis, and then I came back here to do a forum in New Orleans about maybe 6 months after. I met with Brother Big Duck. You probably heard of Brother Big Duck, and all of them down there. And we've spoken about what needs to get done, and of course, it didn't get done because there's no money for it. Right?
Correct. The funding. The funding.
Yeah, there's no funding, right? But it can be done if the community is committed to doing it.
Correct.
On our own, right?
Correct.
And recognizing that we have to do it on our own. You have to behave now like the government doesn't even exist. Like it doesn't even exist, right? And So having emergency food, emergency water, and as Fatine says, you have to learn how to communicate if the cellular networks go down. And really, the only physical way that you can do that is with ham radio operation.
Correct.
FRS radios, because FRS radios and GMRS radios, which are basically family service radios, they are line of sight radios that only can work within a line of sight. You
Correct.
can't really use them for long distances. The signals won't skip far enough to do it. But with a base ham unit with antennas and rigs and everything else, and you have cities that have things called repeaters, you can bounce signals off and you can reach. Listen, I've had handheld ham, and I've listened to signals from Russia, signals that could reach me. Now, I can't transmit to Russia because I don't have the power and the position, but I can certainly hear what's going on from all over the world because the radio frequency signals, they skip in the atmosphere, right? So effectively, we have to have people who are ham radio operators. Everybody doesn't have to, you have to get a license to do it with the FCC.
Correct.
You have to learn how to operate a ham radio. But the fact of the matter is, I'm going to give you an example. One of the things that I teach is that if one person, like within a building complex, has a ham radio base station, that person, in the event that the cellular networks go down, that one person can be the communications hub for all of the people in that building. It's that simple. There are also a number of different apps that you can use on your phone, like the Zelly app. The Zelly app is an app that you can download for free on your phone that you can use use your phone that connects with the internet like a walkie-talkie, right?
yeah.
So that you can talk to somebody. If the cellular networks go down, that the internet is still there, and if you can get near to get Wi-Fi, connect with Wi-Fi, you can literally talk to somebody like a walkie-talkie pretty much any place in the world with this particular app. There's also a Red Cross app and a bunch of other things. So communications is important. Then
I just want to add one thing in there. I'm not saying that you wasn't going there, H. And I want Jax and Joe to jump in here as well. And you probably was going there. But one of the things that and I use sickle cell, but for not just sickle cell, diabetes, insulin, Ozempic, all these things, hypertension and medicine that we in the Black community suffer prevalent from a lot of illnesses that we don't even have enough medicine to sustain us for 3 months. Talk about that as well.
Yeah, and also there are like what Fatine said, one of the things that I put in the Afro Prep book is a kind of detailed breakdown on what people who have sickle cell, what is really available to treat sickle cell, even in terms of something as simple as papaya extract that nobody really talks about, which is strangely enough. I used to speak about this with Ginger, Fatine, and I also spoke about this with Hanifa as well. And papaya extract can help people with sickle cell. And this is something that we have to discuss now. We can't discuss it after the fact because we have the community that is stricken by a lot of these different ailments with diabetes, with asthma, with hypertension, and all of these different things. And when you have a long-term crisis, a lot of these medications are not going to be available. So you have to have alternative and holistic solutions in place. And for the diabetics who require insulin, and I saw this, Joe, let me tell you something. I'm going to go into the horror stories of what happened in New Orleans.
Right, during Katrina, come on.
Yeah, it was at the Superdome, at the convention center, and I just remember those lines of people.
Come on, right? Come on. I remember them as well. I was actually at GOSEP, and I was the battalion XO for the reserve unit that came in with General Honore. And I actually was one of the first people that got there after Katrina, after the levees broke. So go ahead, brother Eitan, go ahead.
Well, it was heartbreaking.
It was.
Especially with the elders.
Yeah.
That there were several isn't described, but there were many elders who died from the heat.
Right. Dehydration. Right. Off top.
And they would have to push them out push their bodies out and away from the folk, slumped over in their chairs.
True,
Um,
true, very
you know,
true.
in the dome, and the toilets had overflown, and
Correct.
they didn't have managers to to know what to do with just the sanitation, right? And brother Joe, that it's a military person. You know that one of the first things that you did when you went on bivouac is you learned how to dig a cat hole, and
Correct.
basically, right? That's the
Correct.
first thing that they told you: cat
Correct.
holes, this, that, and the other thing. This is what you got to do with the waste.
Correct.
But if you don't have people with that training, they don't know what to do.
Correct.
And which is why people had no place to go to the toilet. I mean, it was
And
just
that become toxic. And that all that waste compiles, that
Right.
become toxic. And now you have an environment where people can't breathe. People don't understand the importance of breathing. And then
Yeah.
the toxins that when they get in the air, how you breathe that in, and all of a sudden now you're in a bad situation.
Yeah, you're in a bad situation layered on top of the fact that it's 97 degrees out and 100% humidity, right? And so you have piles of fecal material
Mm.
in this place, people who are sweaty, people who are sick. It was just absolutely miserable. And then when the city called in Blackwater to
Right. Right.
do security, and then you had these racists
Mm-hmm.
riding around in trucks taking pot
Mm-hmm.
shots at people, that people will never know just how many of us were murdered, straight up murdered by these folk that were killing us. I had a guy who was a CEO of a company that had a product that I was actually promoting. I wouldn't have promoted it if I knew what he was like. And anyway, he was talking to me on the telephone, and we code switch, so he never really saw me in person. So I'm talking to him. I know that he's a white guy. He doesn't know that I'm black on the telephone.
Right.
So I'm doing my, we got a code switch all the time, right?
Right.
Yeah, sir.
Right.
And how are you? Yeah, blah blah blah. And
Right.
yeah, we're working together. We're getting this all together right now. Absolutely, absolutely. And then he's telling me casually about how his son worked for Blackwater, and how, yeah, they're riding around. They got to get these black folk, and they can run so fast, but they can't outrun bullets, right?
Mm. Right.
And he says it's great. It's like going and shooting. What did he say? Shooting crabs in the barrel, bang, bang, bang. And the dude was bragging about how his son was shooting people. It's just mind-boggling to know what actually happened, and it's going to happen again.
Brother Edwards,
You're right.
And I'm just going to share this one thing because I know it's declassified now. I know this. A lot of folks don't know that during Katrina is the only time in noted American history that a Naval SEAL team was deployed into New Orleans after Katrina.
I didn't know that.
And that is crazy. I still to this day will never forget that our former, and she's passed away, Governor Kathleen Blanco, and we were at GOSEP and everything, that they actually deployed. That Katrina was a debacle. If anything, Katrina showed us exactly what this country was in a time of crisis, at the area of the separation of black and brown folks and folk who are non-melanated. It was crazy there, from the Superdome to the convention center to the streets to everything else, to the French quarters to everything outside the French quarters. It was a prime example of us at our worst and us at our best at the most trying time, I think, in America. Go ahead, brother Eitan.
It was, I didn't know about the Navy SEAL thing. Never knew that until just now.
Just Sister Jackson, you have a question for Brother Eitan?
Yeah, no, the information you're giving is phenomenal. So thank you so much. For real.
Thanks for that, Joe, too.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you. And also to our viewers, I'm sure you're familiar with it, Brother Eitan, in terms of even personal water filtration systems. I have this right here. This is like a bicycle pump, like my son's bicycle pump, but they have little water filtration systems like this as well that are like straws, basically, that you can still extract water from, a body of water outside. Because if there's a time where we do have to flee our homes, If you could just talk about that a little bit in terms of if we have to leave the inner city, if we have to leave our, suburban life and go to more of a rural area to try to escape to further safety. Because as we know, in the city, not just one person on your block has a gun, almost everybody has a gun, right? So many of those guns are obviously illegal. So if the military does come in and we have a lot of action going on within our cities, and then everyone on the streets have guns, and you have these young kids, running around just out of control, and we have to flee because maybe our homes are getting broken into, people are scavenging for food, for resources. What do you suggest people do in a situation like that?
Well, it's complicated because, again, there's a dynamic to disasters and calamities, right? And generally speaking, what happens is that they kind of burn themselves down. So after, like, for instance, what's one of the things that I fear the most is space weather. Outside of nuclear war, there's really nothing that can be as potentially catastrophic globally as a very, very large X-class solar corona, a flare from a solar flare from the sun's corona, and a geomagnetic storm. Now, we've had major geomagnetic storms, like the one that's talked about a lot. Now, and it goes right to your water and all that other stuff, this question.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had huge storms before. In 1859, it was a thing called the Carrington event. And I can tell you that it was such a powerful solar storm that it produced the enormous aurora borealis effect, even in Jamaica and the Caribbean. And it was so powerful and it was so bright that in the night, the aurora borealis effect was so strong that the people in Jamaica thought that it was the afternoon because it was that powerful a storm. Also, a number of different telegraph machines caught fire across the country and set buildings on fire. Happened again in 1920. It happened again in smaller portions, but in 1921, there was a thing called the New York Railroad Storm. And that was in May of 1921. And they called it the New York Railroad Storm because it set fires at Grand Central Terminal, and it set fires at 125th Street. It set fires all over the country because there was that much of a power surge that comes from just for lack of a better way to put it, the electromagnetic pulse that results from so when you take, not to go into a physics, you take high energy photons, light energy, and when it collides with a gas, it's called the Compton effect. When it collides with a gas with a low atomic weight, the gas sheds electrons, and the electrons get caught up in the magnetic field of the Earth. They have no place to go, so they go into the conductors. And what happens is when they get into the conductors, it shorts out everything. So here's what happens. A geomagnetic storm, a huge one, could conceivably shut down our society, shut down everything, shut cars driving, all of a sudden stop working. Generators stop working. Certain types of planes, they stop working. Transportation systems, everything. So people no longer have the ability to get clean water, right? Because the water filtration systems go down. People don't have the ability to get food. So what happens is people burn out. This first is a latency period after a major catastrophe, which is people just trying to figure out, what the hell do I do? Yeah. Wow, there's no power, there's nothing. What do I do? Well, maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do that. Oh, the supermarket, there's no power in the supermarket. Well, now we got to get rid of the perishable food, right? So people start running in the supermarket and getting meat and everything because they don't know what to get, right?
Right.
Then some of the non-perishables start to disappear, right? Then there's no food deliveries. So there's a period of time where people are just kind of
toilet paper.
Huh?
See, no toilet paper. Remember COVID? No toilet paper.
Right. So what happens is people, oh man, and so they start wiling out, but they can only sustain the wiling out for so long because eventually them meal cramps are going to get you. Once you start, you don't have regular meals anymore. And then people get desperate and then they start to wind down because they have to conserve energy because all of a sudden, a lot of the things that were available are no longer available. And so things start to wind down and then they get desperate and then they get really vicious. Yes. Right. So, the problem is, again, in terms of like now getting back to what you said about the water filters and, and getting all of this stuff organized. And then going back to what I was telling you before, which is precisely why I'm doing this class, because again, each one of these things requires a certain amount of time to explain. There's certain filters. I didn't see what brand that you had. Can you show me what brand it
Well,
was?
no, I don't have it. The one that we have is actually packed up. This is just like a basketball pump. But but I do
Is it
have
a
one
light
that looks
straw?
like, yeah, it's something like, yep. We have a bunch of navy blue ones. We ordered it from Amazon.
That's life straw. Life
Yeah,
straw.
exactly.
Okay.
So that,
Right.
yeah.
Lifestyle.
Mhm.
Life straw is something I'm very familiar with because we had a program called I-15 remembers this Life Straw Now. And this
Mhm.
was before the life straw was even popular. And I had gotten hold of the company. The CEO runs the company's name is Vestergaard Fenstrin, and they did the product. It wasn't even supposed to be for civilian use at the time.
Mhm.
And I had actually, well, I had done a segment on MSNBC and showed the life straw. And then all of a sudden, I got the CEO called me and said, "Eitan, please, next time you do a segment like that, can you let us know because we didn't." The demand for the thing.
Yeah.
Life straws are good. The Sawyer water filter is also good. If you want to have an emergency filter for your house, the Life Straw family filter is good because you can pour a lot of water in. It's a gravity feed, and the family filter gets rid of viruses as well as also the microorganisms. The
Mhm.
the other Life Straw,
And and, and 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 you know what? If you can speak about that for a moment as well, in terms of the microorganisms, because when we drink contaminated water, instantly sometimes our belly it gets crampy, and then now you have diarrhea. Now you're losing even that much more fluid, and then you can get more sick and more dehydrated. So after you
right.
explain, if you could talk about that.
Yeah, you got to have, these filters basically knock out, but most of the microorganisms that you have to worry about come from the GI tract, the humans and animals.
Mhm.
And, the most popular or the most known is like E. coli, right?
Mhm.
And the problem is what particular strain of E. coli are you getting? There's a
Yeah.
one particular strain of E. coli, it's called E. coli 0157. That will kill you if you're not
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
treated properly, right?
Mhm.
So these filters filter the microorganisms. Some of them will filter viruses, not all of them
Mhm.
filter viruses, right? The Life Straw family filter, which is a big filter that you pour water into, that filters viruses. The small life straws that you use, that doesn't filter viruses. It only filters microorganisms, but it can protect you from cholera, and it can protect you from a number of other giardia and a number of other waterborne illnesses that come when water treatment facilities or regular clean water isn't available. Um, so there's a range of different filters like MSR. The MSR filter is the best, but the problem is the MSR filter costs almost $500. The
Mhm.
MSR filter filters everything,
Mhm.
and it's a small hand pump filter that you can use. So there are a number of different filters that people should have, that must have, but if you were to ask me what the cheapest and the easiest in terms of volume, I would say the Sawyer, simply because the Sawyer water filter, you can connect it to you can screw it onto a regular 2-liter bottle of
Oh yeah.
water because it has an adapter that you can fill up that bottle of water and then you can squeeze it out.
Mhm.
So, it's an easy filter to use. But again, as going back to the class, that I don't like to give people a shorts. It really requires detail and specifics, and but that's just something that you can use. Yeah,
Brother,
brother.
brother Edward, if I could chime in, because I know there
Mhm.
was some conversation and there's also some conversation going on in our chat. And I want to say this, and I just want your feelings on this. Many a times when we talk about disasters, the first thing we begin to think about is home protection, home safety. We think guns. I had to remind a good friend of mine who has a ton of guns. Guns ain't worth a flip if you ain't got this one precious item,
That's right.
ammunition. And that's where I want folks to really understand this. You can buy all the guns in the world, but if
Mhm.
you don't have your ammunition, has to be suffice because sooner or later, especially in a disaster with no supply chain, and unless you know, and very few people know how, I know how, but very few people know how to make their
Mhm.
own ammunition. You're going to be in a
Right.
position where sooner or later you're going to run out of ammunition.
Mhm.
And what happens then when you're dependent on this gun culture, but you don't have any ammunition, brother A time?
Eh, Oh yeah, if you don't know how to load, if you ain't got to press, then you're
Mm.
kind of out because again, you're not going to be able to find ammo in a crisis. First of all, ammo's going up, right? Generally speaking, uh, the price of ammo. You used to be able to go to the range and you could squeeze off, boxes of ammo and it wouldn't kill your
Correct.
pocketbook. But right now, you go to a range now, especially if you're using the AR-15 systems, the
Oh, wow.
5.53 and Remington. The amount of money that you spend at a range now, I'd say, well, just speaking for as a New Yorker, I'd say
Mhm.
it's about 5 times more than it was like 20 years ago, something, almost 5 times more in terms of just,
Mhm.
round for round. So yeah, you don't only need ammo, but you also need to know what kind of weapon that you use. Because if you're not familiar with weapons, you really don't want, like for instance, I never recommend for people who haven't really used sidearm pistol. I don't like using a long gun is difficult if you've never used a long gun. Basically, the only
Correct.
people who really know how to use rifles, which is a long gun, are people who have military experience. Because, or if you were a law enforcement officer and you get to go to the range and actually squeeze those off.
Mhm.
Also, a sidearm, a pistol, is good if you know how to use it. But generally speaking, if you don't know how to shoot, a pistol can become somebody else's pistol if
Mm.
you get into a conflict. If you really want to talk about what you can use for home defense, which is more foolproof in that respect, even though the recoil is awful, it is a shotgun because shotguns have a spread. And oftentimes, when you have to fire a pistol, it is very, it's strange. You don't think that you can do it. All you have to do is just a few degrees of deflection away. If somebody fires a gun at you, just moving, even if you can see the gun being aimed at you, and that split second that the gun is being aimed, you're already moving out of the way of the first shell. I have seen people shot and missed. I saw about somebody squeeze off like 6 or 7 rounds and miss the person who was standing practically right in front of them. Right?
I see it all the time. I see.
Really? See, oh, really? Really?
I am a law enforcement officer right now. I see it all the time.
Oh, I didn't know that, brother. Okay, see, so you know. So you got the range time, so you know fully well that you might have you listen, you could have a 45 caliber, you could have a Magnum, you could
Mhm.
have a 357, you can have a Glock 19. But if you don't know how to shoot it, it's not going to do you any good. And in fact, a
Absolutely none.
criminal, as you know, brother, criminals have an advantage over regular folk
Mhm.
because they just don't care.
Yeah.
Correct.
Criminals are not going to hesitate to kill you. They are not going. You see, there's a hesitation that a regular person has.
Mhm.
But when they take a gun and they point it at somebody, they don't want to shoot.
Mhm.
Criminals don't think like that. They're
Correct.
going to come for you and they will shoot. They're
Mhm.
Correct.
desperate, and some of them are just plain evil.
Yeah.
So you got to understand what you're dealing with. And the thing is, if you've never aimed a gun, and I tell people this all the time, well, I'm at the range and I shoot and I get a good group, I get a good tight group. That's nice, but you know what? You ain't never shot a person. You don't
Mm,
know what it's like
mm.
to
Mhm.
kill unless you know what it's like to kill. I said this in the spook who sat by the door, great line. And then the guy says, "You ever kill a man, Willie?" And he says, "Well, I did in Korea." And the one thing that when you spill a man's guts and you recognize what the art of killing is, and unless you are a killer, when you're up against a hard criminal, you're going to lose unless you get the drop on them. And the only way you're going to be able to get the drop is not by you and an inexperience pointing a gun at somebody that you don't really know how to fire. A shotgun will absolutely make certain that you're going to hit that person in that range, down line of that range.
Brother
So,
Aton,
yes.
I got to jump in here because I'm looking at the time. It's 10:30. So it's interesting because I want to do something because me and you have not talked about this, not recently, because we're talking about preparedness and you continue to promote the promote the class. And also, let me just say Grand Rising. And as Sister Jack said, great day to your queen that's in the chat. Kendall, Sister Kendall Cobb, that's in the chat. And Kendall, make sure that you put the information in the chat a couple of times, cut it and paste it, make sure that information about the class. and it's good to see that your queen is in the chat. But I want to just switch gears for a minute because we talk about preparedness and this, that, and other. I want to get into our political system. I want to get into the politics of what's going on in the country and talk about the dynamics of the candidates running for president, the policies that are being pushed. You understand? Because see, people don't know you talk about that. Talk about the dynamics of how certain things are pushed or going against DEI, affirmative action, certain Black books are being banned, the racial overtone of these hate groups. We saw what happened in January 6th. Let's talk about that. Since a lot of folks in the chat, we converse about this on a daily basis or on a weekly basis in our chat. You gave a lot of information, and there's a lot more information about being prepared. But let's talk about that because we go back and forth in the chat. I don't know what Aton is going to say, y'all. I mean, on the current situation, I mean, I have an idea because we've talked about this over our life. But where we're at politically with these two candidates out here, and then the structure of government, the Supreme Court, more of a right now than the left, is not balanced. Let's talk a little bit about that, and where do you see us headed? Where my opinion is that we can implode as a country.
I think we already are imploding. Right? I think we're there already. You know, when you see a big tree, when a tree is falling, Kendall was asking me, the name of the class is the IA and Life Protection Fundamentals. So that's the name of the class. But anyway, when you see a tree falling, a big, redwood, the thing about it is, if you're underneath it, you can't see the tree falling. It's because it's moving very, very slowly. So in effect, what we're watching now is kind of like this transition of the United States. In a lot of cases, we're already there, Fatin. The country's already dissolving. The political system is already switching up right in front of our eyes. You know what I look at this like? You remember when we all grew up with Michael Jackson? We grew up with Michael Jackson. If you were to go into a time machine in 1970 and then come back in let's say the year 2010, and somebody showed you a picture of Michael Jackson in 2010, and the last time you saw him was in 1970, you wouldn't believe it, right? You'd say, oh my God, that cannot be Michael Jackson, right? But we grew used to it. It's the boiled frog syndrome, right? You've heard of this before. You put a boiled frog, you put a frog in water, and then you turn the water up on a stove, and then you start to boil the water. The frog sits in the water, and it doesn't even notice that the frog is dying. It's the same thing with us. We're used to this now. We've been watching our system decay around us, and like after the January 6th and attempted coup, we're used to it. And the thing is it's so, but we're not recognizing, we're not really admitting to ourselves that to a large degree, a lot of what the American system is it's actually dying. So now we have this situation where we have Joe Biden, we have Donald Trump again in a race running for president. Joe Biden is clueless. He's in that presidential bubble. He doesn't really have his finger on the pulse of the United States. He doesn't really know why he's tanking so low, despite some of the good things that Biden has done. And he's done a lot of good things considering the kind of resistance that he's come against, right? He's not the greatest person. He's not the best president that we've ever had, but he's certainly a lot better than Donald Trump. Now we have Donald Trump, who kind of represents this like neo-fascist order that's kind of like evolving around the world. So America's in a transitional state. We're moving towards fascism, slowly but surely. And we are not responding to it in the way that we need to respond to it.
Say that again, Brother Aton. Say that again real slow for the folk in the back that didn't hear that.
Yeah, exactly. We are moving towards fascism and a fascist state. It's a new form of fascism. It's not the kind of fascism that Mussolini practiced, but we saw it even yesterday in that court case about having the 10 Commandments posted in Louisiana now. It has to be posted in schools, right?
Yes.
Now, what's interesting about this is that the framers of the Constitution, the Benjamin Franklins, the Thomas Jeffersons, the James Madisons, and all of the different people that actually wrote the Constitution and pulled it together, they completely distinctly said that there was supposed to be a separation between church and state. That the United States is not supposed to be a theocratic union. It is supposed to be a free nation that churches and religions do not have any sway over. This is about we the people. But yet and still, now we have an order coming down from a court that the 10 Commandments must be on display in every school. That's
signed by the governor. Signed by the governor. Into
signed by the
legislation.
governor. There you go. In a sense, that's a form of fascism, because now this is something that you have to, and you can say the same for the left too. I'm not going to leave the left out of it.
I said that this morning.
Right?
Their hands are dirty too.
What'd you say, Fatine?
I basically said, first of all, I said our founding fathers were racist son of a bitches. That's the first thing I said. That the founding fathers were racist son of bitches and slave owners there. And I talked about, what the right is doing, but I also said that the left hands are not dirty. You know what M. Toomey used to say. I'm not going to do the bird, but he always had talked about that the Republicans are robbing the bank, but the Democrats were driving a getaway car. So they all are in cahoots together. You understand? It's one, we hate to look at it from the perspective that it's the lesser two evils, but unfortunately it is the lesser two evils. And we've been dealing with this for the longest, that some people are just so tired that they'll say, well, we will allow a Donald Trump to get back in there because we continue to get the okie doke from the Democrats.
Well, you do get the okie doke from the Democrats. The Democrats, I heard somebody call them like the liberals. They are what you'd call like the liberal sect. And a lot of them make these awful, awful decisions because they're idealists, right? And it's nice to be an idealist, but there's I remember in the movie Platoon, very profound line. One of the characters says there's the way that it ought to be, and then there's the way that it is, right? And you got to kind of find.
Yes, sir.
You remember that? You remember that line, Joe, right? The way it ought to be and the way that it is.
Who?
Well, a lot of the liberals don't want to recognize the way that it is, and they want to push for things that they have to understand that a lot of people aren't going to agree with. And in effect, that's kind of a form. It's not the same kind of fascism that you get from the far right, which is a violent kind of a fascism. But you could say it's almost like an intellectual kind of a fascism. You have to do what we say because we believe it's the right thing to do. And so you have these two forces that are colliding, but in the fact of the matter is the fascists are going to win, because the one thing that the fascists have that the left does not is unity. You see, they know how to close the fist, right? See, they're more like a cult. They're like this. And the left basically spends a lot of its time arguing. Yeah, that's the left. Yeah,
that's us right there. That's everywhere.
Uh-huh.
The thumb don't agree with the pinky. The pinky got a problem with the middle finger. Instead of us saying, "Why can't we come to common grounds where we can unite?" No, we too busy. Thumb, I don't like what the pinky said. Pinky don't like what the middle, and everybody trying to be the head finger in charge. No, you got to come together, just like the fascists.
Yeah, exactly. So, Fatine, we're moving into a fascist state, slowly but surely. And the fact of the matter is, as it stands today, it does not look like Biden is going to win the election. It looks to me like Donald Trump is going to win. I don't see Biden winning at this point, and I'm going to tell you why Biden is losing. Mostly because he's going to lose. If there's anything that's going to lose this election for Joe Biden, it is the border. That's his weakness. He allowed that thing to get out of control, and it is out of control because you have to have controlling mechanisms in place. It doesn't matter if you want to be compassionate. It's great to be a compassionate nation. It's great to want to absorb and to help people. But if you're going to do it, you have to set boundaries. Boundaries are set for everything. You study the martial arts, there's boundaries. You go into the military, there's boundaries. You go to school and college, you have to get your reports in. There are boundaries. You just cannot open your borders and allow people to just come in. people who are not vetted, people who have no identity, and to set nothing in place, and then to allow these people to get plopped into the cities, not on a federal plan, but on a local plan where the city taxpayers have to foot the bill for a problem that is created by the federal government. At the
Ooh, you
end of
said
the
a
day,
mouthful.
that Biden, when he saw people flooding the border in that way, now granted, we know how this happened, American policy, and what has American policy been in Latin America over the past 50, 60, 70 years?
Come on,
And
come on.
the Central Intelligence Agency and the things that they have done in
Yes.
Latin America
To destabilize Latin America. That's right.
stabilize it, right?
Mhm.
So, and in Venezuela, and the sanctions against Venezuela, and what they did in Colombia, and what they did, all of these different things that the United States did is coming basically to haunt them back and destabilizing these places and helping, not to mention the amount of corruption that they have in these countries. The people that run these countries are so corrupt, right? But the fact of the matter is, when you know this and you don't put any mechanisms in place, and if you want to take people in, that means that you have to set emergency mechanisms in place to vet the people who are coming, number one. If you know that Venezuela does not share the identities of criminals, they don't share their records of criminals in their country with the United States, then how in the hell are you allowing all of these people in and unvetted without even analyzing who they are? They can come over. What about the Chinese nationals that are coming and throwing their passports away in the desert? Nobody's talking about this so that they can reestablish their identities. Where can you do this in any other nation on the planet, where you can just walk in and completely change your identity, tossing away your passport, tossing away your identity, restarting from scratch? How do we know who is coming into the United States? And this is why, and I said, you know what I think? I think it's probably about 1% to 2% of all of the people coming across the border are problematic. Maybe a little bit more, but I don't think anything less. But even 1% to 2% of 200,000, that's a lot of problems, right? 1% to 2% of 1 million, that's a whole lot of problems. And that's what Biden did. And then he took these people and then you placed them in the poorest communities, for the poorest communities to absorb them, in Chicago, in New York, in Denver, in all of these cities that are doing their best to kind of deal with this situation. But in fact, it's the taxpayers that are losing. The taxpayers, and then you still have veterans on the street. You still have the homeless. You still have the mentally ill. You still have the people who are substance abusers. All of these problems haven't been dealt with, but you're still bringing in all these people. Who did this? It was Joe Biden. And that's why he's probably going to lose for team.
And Brother Aton, I have this question to ask. I hate to say it. This feels eerily like a movie. That along comes this Donald Trump figure, much like the figure in V for Vengeance. You know, all of a sudden comes, and I can see 4 years of Donald Trump literally plunging this country into a quasi semi-dictatorship. Your feelings on that?
Oh yeah, and it's going to happen. And the sad part about this is that we have a lot of black folks, which is very, very sad.
Come on.
Right? A lot of black folks stepping up to support Trump. And they're stepping up to support Trump primarily because of the migrant crisis, really, especially in Chicago, especially in New York, because they're looking at this in a very simplistic way, right? A lot of and a lot of black men who, because it's mostly the people who are supporting Trump for the most part are black men. And that's because black men, a lot of these black men that are supporting Trump, they want to being adjacent to white power because they want to assume this white power that they're never going to assume. And they're being played by the far right by assuming just because Donald Trump starts to sing the songs and praises a bunch of black people that will buck dance in front of him, like mushmouth Senator Tim Scott, who looks like Mush Mouth from the Cosby Show, right?
Yeah, from Fat Albert.
From Fat Albert and the Cosby Show. And, you know, these black people that think that, oh, these black men, because black women, generally speaking, they're not about that Trump life. So we have a small contingent of black men that are behind him. And the black women that are behind him, like the sister in Chicago, her name is something Red, and she's got this, we want to flip the state red.
Candace Owens, or
Candace
Owens.
Owens and people like that. You know, they are, because they think, because they've been fooled by that white power elite, that they can be spoon-fed a little bit of crumbs.
They'll be accepted. They'll be accepted into the fold.
And they're not. And you'll never be accepted into the fold of power. And voting for Donald Trump is a terrible mistake. Blaming the people who come here, these economic migrants, because I say economic, look at how the media has twisted things around. The mass media, when you hear the mass media talking about, and this is a major situation because so many black folks resent it. They don't resent the migrants. They resent the entities, the cities they've found millions and millions and millions of dollars to support these folk, but have ignored their own people. And when their own people in Chicago, hey, we need community centers. We need this for the elderly. We need this for the veterans. We need this for the sick. Sorry, we ain't got the money. So here come this wave of folk, and then money is just falling out of the sky to deal with it. But the black folks that are getting angry at the migrants for doing that, they are wrong. They should not direct any anger towards these people who are just struggling to find a better life for themselves, even if they're not qualified for asylum. They're doing what they got to do for their families. The problem is the government and the Democrats who ignored them for decades, who promised them in every single damn election that they're going to change things. And they say whatever they need to say to get voted in and elected. And once they get those offices, they turn their backs on the community and pretend that they never heard a word that they said. The Democrats betrayed the black community.
And that's the okie doke that the politicians, especially some of those Democrats, would come on our radio station and say this. This is why I try to tell people that, you know, even though I do a comparison between Trump and Biden, I always say that the Democrats' hands are not dirty. And then we get some civil rights leaders that come behind and spew the same bullshit. I hate to say it like that, but they spew the same bullshit. And then when the people are angry, and when I bring up the homeless problem, you know, when people that say are homeless, wait a minute, migrants are getting EBT cards. You didn't give us no damn EBT cards. When there were lines around hotels and we sleeping in the streets and on the trains, you didn't do a bent over backwards that you bent over for the migrants. Not that they don't need help, but what about us as a people? And that's a mindset that starts from the top. The same way we can send the same amount of money to Ukraine and we can send the same amount of money to Israel. We don't pour the kind of resources and money into our places till it's broken or it's till a damn election year. We don't let our schools fail till it's on the time they're failing, and then we put the resources in to try to get them back up. That's the playbook. And I hate that playbook. You understand what I'm saying? And everybody that does it is a culprit. And I go after you. I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, whatever you are at the end of the day, because you continue to have your foot on our necks.
So let me say this. Let me say this before I break. Okay. Come on, Sis Jax.
I was going to say, and you're so right, Fatim, because once they do put that money into the school system, what happens is there are people that then get the contracts and develop the curriculums and they give them the money. So the money still circulates within their own community and not ours.
I mean, when you look at it, and Brother Eitan, I want you, we've kind of briefly talked about this, but I'm in the state of Louisiana, where we're across national news this morning because the 10 Commandments have been by governor executive order now to be placed in every public school. That is literally a part of the Project 2025 playbook, what is pulling on the strings of evangelical and especially Caucasian evangelicals to say, this is how we take our country back. We established what we said should have been from day one in this country that does not include a black and brown agenda.
Yeah, so Aton, I said this morning, so you can go on it in depth. I said this morning that it's get back. It's get back from the left pushing, certain things with the LGBTQT plus community. It's get back because a lot of folks that know, as you talk about, the country is starting to implode or fall. They know that this is their last stand, and that they're going to do everything possible. I got something in my throat. Excuse me. That they're going to do everything possibly to save whatever they had to hold on to. And that's why I said it's get back. And it's also their vision, as you said, Project 25, but it's even before Project 25. These are things that were put in place years ago to save this country for them. And that's what I was just basically saying. It was get back, but you have to understand, we've never even used the word fascism on this show. We used it on Open Line, but that's the direction they're moving in. I just want to say that part to hand it off to you, brother.
Yeah, but it is I mean, there's nothing else that you can call it, right? I mean, it's a neo-fascism. It's a new version. It's not like it's fascism, again, like 2.0 or 3.0. It's not the fascism of Mussolini. It's not the fascism of Hitler. It's not the fascism of even like Lenin in terms of some of the things that he did in Russia. It's a new form of it, but it is the same kind of thing. And again, where we have these elements within the United States that want to dial the clock back. At the end of the day, what does it come down to? It comes down to the fact that there's a change in the United States, and they call it the browning of America. Yes. And the element within the far right and the right wing, they don't like to see these demographic changes that are happening, and that's the truth. And because they don't see this, and they also see these demographic changes are going to change the power structure in the United States eventually, and that's why they're so worried about these people coming from south of the border, because they know that most of them are brown. Mm-hmm. And they're going to change the social order in the United States for sure. Mm-hmm. And they want to make sure that they can maintain the white power structure. See, and the Democrats, they're inclusive for the most part, but they're also misguided in a lot of ways too. The Democrats have, in a lot of ways, failed their primary constituents, because Black people, especially foundational Black Americans, if it had not been for them, then Biden wouldn't be president. Biden was rescued by Black folks, and then he made the arrangements to get Kamala Harris as the vice president. And if it hadn't been for us, then effectively we would not have Biden as president. It would be Donald Trump for sure, because we saved them. And as Black folks, especially foundational Black Americans that are here, they are the ones who, directed the nation. But what's happening is that the white folks, I want to stress this, it's not white people, but it's the racist white folks and the far right white folks who really feel that, I think that in a lot of cases, I think I don't know if y'all agree with this position. I think the biggest primal fear that white people have is that if we take power, that we'll do the same things to them that they did to us.
Just said that. I just said that earlier. I just said the same thing. Yes, I did, brother. Word for word, I said that.
I think that's what it is. I think it's a fear where they should know, that we're part of the foundational fabric of the United States, Black folks, right? You wouldn't have an America in the way that it is without us.
Correct.
And because of that, we kind of know the program. We've worked. They have been our slave masters. In a lot of ways, I think that Black people know white people better than white people know themselves. It's one thing looking in the mirror, but it's another thing watching the person watching you look in the mirror. So we see two facets of white folks that they can't see. because they can't see themselves. That's why they do the things that they do, and they say the things that they say. We know what they did. The same thing like a Native American. We know what the deal is. No matter what they tell a Native person, no matter what they tell a Black person, we're like, come on now.
Exactly.
Come on. Don't pretend, right? We know what you are. And because we know, we've been there from day one. We were on that boat when Washington was crossing the Potomac, and you see that Black man in that boat.
Come on.
Recognize that the foundational aspects, the foundation of this country was built through slavery, the institution of slavery, the economic foundation. So we know that. And we can sustain this country in the same way that it's been sustaining itself. Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense, he's basically in charge of the most powerful military on the planet. He's a Black man. He's a Black general who knows how to push the buttons and to make the machine work. It is not going to change. We are not going to repeat the same kind of racism that white people directed towards us. We are not the people who will throw rocks at white kids going to school in the morning. We're not the people who are going to tell, we're not afraid of white people. And if you want to go back to Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, why would we be afraid? They fear us because they fear elimination. They fear, and I'm not talking about killing. I'm saying they want to preserve their
because they're dying off. Because they're dying off. That's correct.
They want to preserve their phenotype, right? Which is nothing wrong with that. But if they want to do that, all they have to do is just have sex and be fertile. Really, at the end of the day, there's just not enough of them, and that's what their problem is. And they just want to say, you know, we're going to do whatever we have to do in a fascist realm, and we're going to do all this subversive stuff so that we can keep these Black people and these brown people and these red people and these yellow people under control. And we're at the top of the pyramid. And that's all this is about. But the fact of the matter is, Fatin, this country is changing. This country is moving in a different direction. It's already there. I don't think that Biden is going to get in at the next election. I don't know how he's going to do with this debate coming up in a week and a half or so, but I don't know if it's going to be too good. We have to brace ourselves to the reality that we're probably going to have Donald Trump as a president again. And
yes,
because we're going to have to do things in our community that we have not done in a long time. Also, I'm going to say something that a lot of people don't want to say. And I'm going to tell you this right now. We got to stop this big tent foolishness that we do. And let me explain to you what it is. You know what? We ain't got no friends.
Oh, say it again, brother. Say it loud and say it proud. Say that one again, brother.
We don't have any friends. Right? That's the truth. Now, I'm not saying that we don't have allies within different groups and different communities, right? Because we do. And if you look at the history of the civil rights movement, then you find like some of the greatest supporters of our movements and our struggles have come from, the white community, the Jewish community in particular. You think of Leonard Bernstein and his support of the Black Panther. You think of Jane Fonda and the support of the Black Panther Party. But then we were working together in mesh, right? Because I'm part of that whole scene and people, and still working with a lot of Black Panthers, the original Black Panther Party and all of that. So we have allies, but generally speaking, this big tent situation is not real. And that isn't even specifically, nobody wants to talk about these things. But generally speaking, there's a lot of outside of what we know that exists within the sentiment of anti-Blackness within the white community, but there's also anti-Blackness within the Latino community as well, that nobody wants to talk about it. You have to recognize the reality that that Latin America is a pigmentocracy, which was established when the Spaniards came over, right? And basically opened up that document. There's a thing that people should, if you've never heard of this thing called the 1619, the Spanish requirement. Not the 16, what is it? The 15 something, it's 15 something. I can't even think, 1523 or whatever it is. There's a document that Spain created where when they came into the Americas, they would open this document up, whether they landed on a beach or whatever, and basically said, hey, listen, whether anybody was there or not. We're from
Yeah.
Spain, and in the name of our King and Queen and Jesus Christ, everything you got belongs to us, right?
Mhm.
Everything. Nothing belongs to you. And if you don't give it to us when we tell you to give it to us, we're going to do any damn thing that we want to you. So you got to understand that this pigmentocracy that exists in Latin America, in a lot of cases, people will come up from Latin America and look down at black people.
Come on. Black people look down at black people.
Black people look down at black people too.
Shit.
But this so-called big tent, we have a big tent with allies who, like the Young Lords, who are Puerto Ricans, who worked in mesh with us. But this so-called big tent, it just doesn't work. We don't have allies. We don't have friends. And black people need to work on black people, not everybody else. Like when you hear a black person talking in public and these black politicians, and every single time, and it just gets on my damn nerves, right? That every single time that we speak, we're always bringing up other groups, but you will not hear those very same groups bring us up when they're talking about the needs of their community.
Speak on it. Speak on it. You
Right?
must be in
So
Lafayette,
when
Louisiana.
when we're talking about this, you know, we're always the black and brown, but when you hear them, it's like our community, our people, they don't care about black folks, no way, right? Now, we have to start to this division within the ranks. Who are the allies and who are not? Brother Joe, this is like the military. Are you friend or foe?
Roger that.
Are you neutral? Or are you not neutral? Right? So we have to recognize this reality, and we have to start moving forward with this particular sensibility, that it is not hostility or anger or anything that we want to direct to any other people, but we have to, as Marcus Garvey said, do for self. It is not about anybody else. It is about us. You do what you have to do, because just keep in mind, because we are the architects of all of these major social changes that happen are rooted in our struggle for civil rights that has gone on for the past 400 years, right? So our allies, who are the abolitionists, who are the white revolutionaries and the white radicals that stood with us, and also from other groups. But the fact of the matter is, we have to recognize that we are in this struggle by ourselves. And unless you walk the walk, don't talk the talk. And it's time for us to pull the plug on this big tent philosophy, right? And it's also time for us to recognize our brothers and sisters in the diaspora. And that's the big mistake that a lot of FBA people make. And it's time for us to embrace, because keep in mind, as Brother Felipe Luciano says, we all came over here on the same slave ships. They just stopped at different ports, right? So let me tell you something, and anybody who's listening to this, from my standpoint, from my life protection workshop, from my Afro Prep program, I don't care what country that you come from. If you are Puerto Rican and you look like this, you're black.
That's right.
If you are from Latin America and you look like me, you're black, right? That Latino, that name is a name that was created in the 1940s to kind of classify people from Latin America, but it is not a race. It is not a phenotype. It is an identity. It is an ethnicity. And it is an ethnicity born from the slaughter and the genocide of the Native American. So you have to also recognize that those brown people coming across the border, the people who are the real immigrants are the people with the white skin who came over here in boats. Those brown people that are coming off of this, they call themselves Latino, but really they're really Native American people that are just moving from place to place, right? And they've been separated from their native identity because their native identity is castigated in their own countries. Because the worst thing is what you learn in Latin America, and I had a Puerto Rican friend his abuela was as racist as Bull Connor. And she used to talk about playing with, all you do is play with these monkeys, basically black folks, right? And you know, what you learn in Latin America is something from day one, mejorar la raza, which is advance the race, right? Don't marry black and don't marry Indian. You want to advance the race and you want to move towards white. And that's why Dylan Roof, the guy who shot up the church in South Carolina, when Dylan
Charleston
made he had a manifesto, and he spoke about how he liked Latin America, he liked Latino television because Latinos understand the value of white beauty, and that basically when you look at Univision, or you look at Telemundo, or you look at any of the Latin American television shows, you'll be hard pressed to find an indigenous person or a black person anywhere. They're not represented. And when an indigenous person like what is his name, Morales in Bolivia, right, who stepped up to run the country, they did everything that they could to bring him down, because the indigenous people in Latin America are looked down upon. The black people in Latin America are looked as a lesser than. And the only people that count are the people who are the lighter skinned mestizos and white Latinos. And that's basically what we're up against. We're up against a sensibility that was embedded by the Spaniards hundreds of years ago in the casta system that used to be formulated, all kinds of different grades of black that you have in Latin America, grades of shades of people. And then they come up here with these ideas. I heard one guy in Chicago go to an actual forum in Chicago, and the black people were complaining, not about the migrants, but complaining to the mayor about, hey, how is it that you found all this money to deal with these people, but you don't have it for us? And then the guy gets someone and says, oh, we have to work together. We have to do this. And then at the end, he says, y'all are lazy. You're lazy. Calling black people lazy, the people who basically came here, the Spaniards shipped black people into Latin America to help them build Latin America up.
Right. That's
but black
right.
people are the lazy ones.
Let me ask you this.
Big Ten stuff got to go.
Yes.
Let me ask you this, Eitan, because I know our time, we're going, I guess, a little overtime because we usually end at 11 Eastern and 10 Central. You mentioned Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. You know, a lot of us that would see her, we would see her in person at First World. We see it on Phil Donahue's show. You mentioned Marcus Garvey. You had Noble Drew Riley. We had Dr. King, Saverna Truth. We can go down the list of the people that we had. And, you know, I talk about the book, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. And we also talk about the destruction of our music, destruction of our television program, the arts, businesses. You know, even when we had segregation, we had more businesses then than we have now. I made a statement the other day, Eitan, but I'm just going to throw this question out to you. I made this statement. I said, we are a powerless. I said, we as a collective are a powerless people with enormous power, meaning that we don't have real power because we as a people have not come together as a collective that honestly have power. We just don't realize it and pull it together and do some of the things that we need to do. My question to you, Eitan, why do you think with all these folks that came in organizations, Black Panther, Nation of Islam, so many other organizations that have come together, and of course, when they go after the head, they kill the head, the body seems to die. Why are we as a people so fragmented? Why are we so fragmented, brother? Because I said before, when we're so fragmented, we're all over the place and we can't unify, because when you defragment or you put all that information back in an order where it can smoothly be pulled and received. But when you fragment it, it slows it down. It slows it down. It slows the process of pulling the data and everything. Why are we so fragmented? Why do we continue generation after generation after generation? The Jewish people said never again after the Holocaust. They said never again. Why can't we get it together?
It's not an accident. You know, we were deliberately separated as a people. We were deliberately, it's a psyop, really. It was a very, very sophisticated psychological warfare that has been directed towards us for hundreds of years at this point. And you can go back to something like when Niccolo Machiavelli wrote The Prince, right? When he wrote that book to be read by kings. And you can even go back before The Prince. But generally speaking, when we're dealing with the Western Europeans that dominated us, that dominated basically the world, the biggest tool that they had in their arsenal, it wasn't just the guns, it wasn't just the swords, it wasn't just the cannons, it was psychological warfare. And they recognized that the divide and conquer strategy was probably the most powerful strategy that they had in their toolbox. And they used that, and they used it very, very well. and also their religion, right? They use their religion like a sword.
Mhm.
The symbolism, the ideals, um, mixed in with our naivete. We come from a land of abundance as Africans, and you think about this in terms of what, if you even look at African stories and you look at the continent, and there's everything that you want, everything that you need in terms of minerals, in terms of food, in terms of clean water. And I'm talking about the Africa of 500-600 years ago. When you think of the great king Mansa Musa, who was the richest man who ever walked on the planet, who had a caravan that stretched across the Sahara Desert, gold, that he would give away gold in the same way that we give away a Tic Tac. Africa was a land of abundance, but Europe was a land of warfare. And when you look at Western European, Western Europe, and then you look at Eastern Europe, and you look at the history, and then you find that these people were clashing for over 1,000 years. It was a period called the Dark Ages that we were not living like that. That wasn't part of our existence. And one of the things that the Europeans learned in terms of, there's a great book that you should all read. It's called Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jared Diamond, who basically breaks down how Western Europeans were able to conquer all of these different territories, and with the inventions that they made relevant to navigation at sea and traveling and seafaring and all of the other different things. And then they realized, we can really split these people up. This is what we can do. And we use our tools, we can use our weapons, and we use our philosophy. And you divide and conquer in that way. So once you get people actually believing that they were lessers, like for instance, the Cinque mutiny, right? Isn't it interesting how when Joseph Cinque, when he came, they got this African prince. And isn't it interesting how his behavior as a prince was so distinctive and so much different than most of the slaves that were on board that ship, that he stood out even to the slaveholders, and that he was actually able to petition legal help to actually get him freed and sent back to Africa. Think about that for a moment. His posture, the way that he thought of himself. He thought of himself as princely. He thought of himself as regal, and they saw that he was regal. And so once you are able to kind of break people down and make them believe that they are lesser than, and make them believe that you are superior to them, and then you take that image of Ted Nugent or Jeffrey Holder, whatever, like white guy, blonde haired, blue eyed Jesus, somebody who's supposed, even the fact that we call him Jesus, his name was Yeshua ben Yosef. That in itself is a psychological tactic. Why are we referring to him, a person who, quite frankly, the language that he spoke, Aramaic and Hebrew, it doesn't even have a J in the language. It's
saying that for the longest. Try to tell him that.
Right? His name was Yeshua ben Yosef, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we take this image of this particular person who looks nothing like the image that they purvey. And then you take these people from Africa, and then you take these people, and then you basically drill into them. You are lesser than we are. We have the weapons, we have the guns. And then you have so many of them that there were, the slaves at one point outnumbered the slave masters. And then when you look at Haiti, and then you think about, there was a law, I think it was in 1821, where Congress actually came together and said that it was illegal for slaves to be in contact with Haitians because they felt that they would foment revolution. This is one of the reasons why Haiti has been treated the way that it has been, when it happened in 1804, when the revolution came, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Haitians beat the French, and the Western Europeans punished the Haitians for beating the French, and surrounded the island and blockaded it and set up embargoes so that you couldn't get anything into Haiti because they didn't want that republic to build. Western Europeans have been dominating us for centuries simply because they fear what would happen if we came together. We believe the hype. That's why you can tell somebody in Latin America, mejor la raza, advance the race. How is that advancing the race? Really, when you think about it, think of what the achievements that Black people have been able to come to do over the years with the resistance of white folks, with racism. We still have produced great scientists. We still have produced great artists, and we produce the finest athletes that the world has ever seen. But yet and still, people still think I'm sure you've all seen that video of the Dominican woman who was handed a black baby and she threw it away to take the white one because she was so disgusted by her own existence that she wants to take a white baby and embrace that as what she sees as the image reflection. So it's being a big 400-year psyop. And all I want to say is to close with that, Fatim, it's time for us to kind of stop that. I think that, one of the things that I think Rev should do and all of the different civil rights leaders, we have to reach out to our brothers and sisters in Latin America, in Puerto Rico, in the Dominican Republic, in Venezuela, in Brazil, in Colombia, in Nicaragua, in Panama. And it's time for us to become one.
Yes.
And when that happens, that one, let that glove close. We are all black. We all came here in the same way. And that's when you will see things change. And how can you look down at your black self and be ashamed of it? Think about that for 1 second. And so, Fatim, we've been duped. As Malcolm said, we've been bamboozled. We've been hoodwinked for 400 years. And it's time, as these Western Europeans and the rest of them are going to tear this world down with that, the AI and everything else, it's time for us to come together, form survival strategies. And like I said, this Saturday on the 29th, come on in, join us, because we're going to go through all of this and we're going to start this process. I'm starting it earlier. I didn't expect to be doing this now. I thought I was going to start this in September, National Disaster Preparedness Month. But if you're willing to do the work, then we can get it done. I know we can. I know 100% that we can make this happen. But, we have to start from someplace. So that's my position on it. That's my, as much as I can say without getting the algorithm pulled.
Sister Jax, do you have any final question for Brother A-Time?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I just love what you're saying, Brother A-Time. You are definitely speaking my language. And I preach and I tell people all the time, Blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, we are all, like you said, we are all one. And the sooner we realize that we're all one, the faster we can move ahead together as a collective. And
Sister Jack, wait, let me just interject. I don't want to cut you off. I just want to say this. Here's the hit. No, this is where I'm coming from, because something that you said. See, when we even the word, these like Hispanic, right? That is an ethnicity.
Yeah.
These people are Native American.
Yeah.
Right.
Taino Indians. Yeah.
They are all there. They are the Taino. They are the Arawak. They are the Maya. These are the people of the sun. Right. And this branding, this Western European branding, right? Let them say that for who are you want to be branded by the Western Europeans. We're Black. That's what we are. We come from Africa. They are Native American. They come from this region. We are on their territory. Western Europeans are on their territory. And they're the ones who say they've been taught to think of us as lessers. They've been taught to think of themselves as lessers. They look in the mirror and they see an Indian, and then they teach their children, mejorar la raza. We got to get whiten this race up. So what I just wanted to interject there is, like, they're just Native American to me. They're Native.
No. And you're absolutely right. And I mean, even when you go back to scripture, how it breaks it down, with the tribe of Levi, the tribe of Gad, the tribe of Asher, Manasseh, though the names that we call ourselves nowadays, Jamaicans, Haitians, those weren't our original names in the first place, but I mean, even with Africa, that wasn't the original name of Africa. They, went in, colonized it, and gave a whole continent a different name, and like you said, they'll go in and say, this is mine, and these are my laws, and I don't care that you live here prior to, this is what I'm doing. So they were a group of, racist, wicked, people, according to scripture. It's nothing that I'm making up, but it's still according to scripture and according to fact of what happened. So, thank you so much for bringing awareness, waking our people up and giving them some further insight. We talk about stuff like that all the time on our show, and we just, really appreciate you. And look, I did grab my life straw. Look, see?
It is life straw.
Yeah, exactly. So for those of you who don't know, like, here's the tip where the filter is. You just pop off the cap, right? and then you could drink out of it. You just wear this around your neck, and you can go to a body of water and have a sip to stay hydrated and to stay safe so you don't die of dehydration. But no, great words, Brother Eitan. I truly appreciate you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sis.
There you go, Brother Eitan. Just thank you, my brother, for coming on and us to get to push this event that you're doing. The information your queen put in the chat, and there go the picture I sent to Joe. Joe just put it up there.
Yeah, seats are limited, so we have a limited amount of space because of the platform. But please connect with us. I don't know if the information that you can hit me at AtonEdwards1@gmail.com. That's AtonEdwards, the number 1 @gmail.com. If you want to purchase a ticket, you can Cash App us at Brooke Cobb Strider, BROOKECOBBSTRIDER. And just look at our website also. Afro Prep Now, by about 5 o'clock, we're going to put up all the information. So afroprepnow.com. Go look at that website, and all of the information will be up there. I encourage you to join. Oh, and just to let you know that I'm doing this program with my son, Amen. Teen is known since he was born, as excited with his daughters. And we're basically creating a mechanism called it's Ikaya Eco, and we're designing, Amen and I, collapsible portable shelters. And we are effectively building these collapsible portable shelters. We'll have it ready in September. So if you come to this event, then you join the IPN, and we will be able to roll out shelters that we can take to the Congo. We can take them to hurricanes. We can take them to New Orleans, Brother Joe. When the situation arises, we can roll these things out. They're 100% recyclable. They're 100% sustainable. And this is what we're doing this for. So please join our event, and look forward to seeing some of y'all.
Brother Eitan, I want to get with Brother Fatim, and I want to bring you because we are in a very climate and catastrophic area of the United States. You need to come down here, and you need to give a class down south. So we need to coordinate that and work that out, that we can have you down south here in Louisiana and maybe in Houston. We may try to move it over to Houston, Texas, where we can have you in a place where we can get a large crowd of folks, and you can give this class down here. So we're going to coordinate that and hopefully make that happen within the next few months.
Oh no, I think we have to do that. I mean, like the classes that we do now, they're online, because I used to do them. I did a few classes. I was telling Kendall that Fatin, that we want to go down to New Orleans anyway. We've been preparing to get to New Orleans, but I just said I wanted to make sure that I was at my best weight, because I know when I get down there, I'm going to wind up gaining about 20 pounds.
So Brother Eitan, I'm not a Louisianian, nor am I a New Orleans. I actually live in Lafayette, but I will testify. I got here to Grambling State University in 1995, and I promise you, I don't look nothing like I looked when I first got here in 95. I can promise you that.
Yeah.
Well, I just said, Kendall, I can't. If we go down there, I got to be at my best weight, fighting weight. I can't, because I'm gonna gain 20 pounds when I get there. So I'll be happy to go down there and train and teach people. We do it online because it's more. We can do more people. But
exactly.
a live thing. There's nothing better than a live session.
Exactly. And let me just say this. I couldn't call this the other day. I was talking to Joe, and I said, Joe, what is that area that got decimated? And it was the 9th Ward. That's what it was.
Lower 9. Yeah.
Lower 9. And I know what Joe just said about New Orleans, but I can't forget, because I don't know what's going on in the 9th Ward. But my thing is, they were, I hate to say it was like I saw a lot of poverty down there. And I want to, before we even say where we're going and how we're going about it, I want to find out what's going on in the 9th Ward. Joe, we want to make some connection with some of the folks down there, some of the activists, some of the politicians, because I met some great politicians down in New Orleans during the Katrina tragedy situation that were really righteous brothers and sisters down there. So, we'll take one step at a time, because I know Eitan is very, very, very busy. And again, I want to thank him for coming on the broadcast today. I've been talking about Eitan on this show. I received the approval from Aton about 3 to 4 weeks ago that he would come on the show. So it's not the situation that he wasn't coming. I just didn't reach back out to him because we had some things to do. But once he reached out to me last night, I said, oh, by the way, and I said Thursday, today, or Friday. He was like, I come on today. So Brother Aton, this is another platform here that we are out. We are going to be down in New Orleans for the Essence Festival. Down there doing the podcast and things like that and bringing information down there. But again, my brother, it's not more what I can say. And I have to thank Brother Aton. He's done so many things. He comes out the comedic world. He knows all of those, folks out there in the comedic world. He was a comedian himself. You understand? I'm telling you, there's a lot that we just don't go into. He doesn't need his backpack, but he's a phenomenal brother, but he's been a tremendous and great friend. And he's been such a strong ally when it came down to the fight and the struggle for those that live with sickle cell disease. So I got to thank that brother there for all of that. And if I needed enforcement, all I had to do is call on this brother.
Brother Fatim, before we let Brother Aton go, and Brother Aton, I want you to stress this to brothers and sisters, because there was something said earlier by Brother Fatim that we kind of just skimmed over. And I think you and I are probably one of the only two folks that keep this on us on a regular basis. I keep a gas mask in my bag, in my vehicle. Stress to folks how important it is to have a breathing apparatus, and I don't call it a gas mask. I call it a breathing apparatus, that you can breathe and filter out smoke, toxins. Some folks call it a gas mask. But tell them how important it is to find, and they are affordable and they're out there. Just talk about that right briefly, please.
Yeah, everybody has to always have, as you say, carry these masks, some sort of respirator. The partial face respirators that we always have them available. I mean, from the cloth partial face ones that you can just put over your face to the rigid ones, to the the solid ones that you can put over. It's extremely important to have respirators with you at all times, simply because there's so many airborne hazards that you could be exposed to in so many different ways, especially driving your car. You could be on a highway and you could get into, or there could be an accident with a truck that is carrying, toxic material. It could be in the form of it could be in the form of particulate that you might be exposed to. It could be in the form of a gas. Like when you saw what happened in, what was that train collision in, what was it, Palestine or something, in some strange name. Remember there was
in Ohio.
Right? Correct. And, one of the first things that you need for something like that is you need respiratory equipment, personal protective equipment, so that you can get out of that zone without inhaling whatever was released into the air. So, one of the things that I teach in these classes is not showing, but the importance of personal protective and respiratory equipment, because we all live within proximity to something that is a hazard or contamination, hazard of respiration. We live near oil facilities. A lot of us live in these places that are zones that are dangerous. A lot of Black folks live in these places. They call sacrifice zones. I don't know if you've ever heard that term. They call them sacrifice zones because the real estate that they're located in is near. There you go. There you go.
I got the other part here too. Yeah, okay. I told you.
Oh,
yeah.
We can't go into this now, but let me tell you something. I didn't say one thing.
Yep, my filters.
We are going to move into, there's going to be another pandemic.
That's right.
I hate to tell you this, but all of the arrows are pointing towards that. One of the things that we're going to do, I'm glad that Fatin has got that, because you're going to really need that. One of the things that we're going to be doing in this class is pandemic protection and dealing with emergencies like another pandemic. And this pandemic is going to be a lot worse than the next one. Is going to be the real one. I've been telling people, I remember I went on the Young Turks, and I remember talking to Cenk, and Cenk was like, oh, you think that there's really going to be a pandemic? I did this in 2018, at the end of 2018. And he asked me, when do you think the pandemic is going to hit? I says, well, I wouldn't say that we're going to get past another year. I think it'll probably hit by about 2020. And you better start doing this. And I'll pull that up for Teen. It's really funny to watch it, because Cenk thought, oh, with all of the the situations that we have and the sanitation, how do you think we're going to have another pandemic? Let me tell you something. All signs are pointing to a huge pandemic within the next few years. And, you know, when you hear about people talking about this bird flu or this avian flu that jumps from chickens, and this is why what Joe is saying, that respirator, don't be those people that had to rush and get their stuff at the last pandemic.
That's
Right?
right.
Don't be those folks. That's why come to this class and you're gonna learn. And just like Sister Jax pulled out that life straw, that every one of us, and oh, by the way, even if you don't have the ducats, even if you don't have the money for it, everything that I do has a side. I can show you how to make a gas mask
Come
from
on.
2-liter
Come
bottle
on. Come
of
on.
soda, right?
Amen.
So all of these things, I can show you how to make water filters scientifically. Keep in mind, if Fatine didn't mention that, that I'm by profession, I'm an engineer and also an applied physicist. That's by profession. That's what I used to do. It's a long time ago, but I still do it and relevant to my project with my son. So the stuff that I make it's scientifically capable of doing.
Let me just say this real quick. So as Aton said, he went on the Young Turks on 2018. And Aton didn't say this, but I'll say this real quick. When me and Aton met, it's crazy because we met twice. It's crazy. We met through Kim Coles the first time, the actress, comedian. And then, because we was at 1515 Broadway, because I worked there at Billboard Magazine, music magazine. Then we met, met through Big Paul when we were doing security for the United African Movement under attorneys the late Alton Maddox, C. Vernon Mason, and Reverend Al Sharpton there and coming together. And when we first talked, Aton would talk all this stuff, but he was like, nobody's going to put us on the radio on this. I said, I'll put you on the radio. Yeah, all right, Fatine. You're just talking. I'll put you on the radio. My guys.
No. I never said, wait. I never said that. What I said was, they are not going to let me on, not on KISS, because at the time, that was not the kind of thing to do. And I said, Fatine, you'll never be able to pull that off. That's what I was telling you. I didn't think you could pull it off with Bob and the rest of
Right. So we did, and it blew up. But one of the things he talks about, and a lot of people, and I don't want to get into this, but a lot of people say Obama didn't do nothing, and it's a lot of things that Obama did. But there's another person that Aton introduced me to. It's a white scientist by the name of Laurie Garrett. She wrote the book, The Coming Plague. She only did our show one time because she's sought after. And during COVID, a lot of people would have saw her on social media. She might have did a couple of shows out there, but she wrote the book about the coming plague. And she talked about these pathogens as Aton talks about. She talked about these plagues, but one of the biggest things she talked about was Ebola and what was going on in Africa. Don't y'all know that Aton would know this better than I do. I do know that there was a threat with Ebola coming to America, but Obama versus, and this is not about Donald Trump, I'm just telling facts, that he was very proactive of dealing with Ebola so it wouldn't come to America or come here and spread, because that plague right there was something you don't want to be part of. You understand? And this brother introduced me to Laurie Garrett, got her on the program to talk about these things. And they're so important. And this is why I tell people in the chat, sometimes we all are ignorant to information, meaning we just haven't been exposed to it. But once we're exposed to, it's what we do with that knowledge. It's what we do with that knowledge. Anytime you want to respond to anything I said.
And Fatine, and the thing is that since you brought that up, because you also should talk about how you took heat in the station for a lot of the stuff that we would do simply, and we were always right, but at the same time, you did take heat for it. Because people didn't like, especially the Giuliani administration, and how
OEM came after us. They came after us,
and really wanted that show off the air. They didn't just want to get rid of me. They were like that. They just thought that you guys were just completely and totally irresponsible. And the thing that I want to stress upon all your viewers, Joe, is that like, so Fatin and I have been interfacing with this for a long time, outside of our friendship and, and hanging out and all of that stuff, and stuff that he used to do for Sharpton when he was doing secure, all of this stuff. We go back with that and marching and all of that other stuff. But the reality is that these situations, we've always been ahead of the curve, right, Fatin?
That's correct.
Always ahead of the curve. So one of the reasons that I know that Fatin probably want to bring me onto this, besides the open line, is that we're trying to put this out there now. That's why listen, I told you I did not want to do any of this stuff until September. I'm doing this class now because I know that it'll get a leg up. Everybody who comes to this class is going to have a leg up on what's going to happen over the course of the 3 to 5 months. Oh, bro, Joe, are you going to say something?
Yeah. Well, brother Aton, I want you to know this. Right now, you're being broadcasted not only outside of the tri-state area. Right now, I have people logged in Chicago, Atlanta, Las Vegas, California, state of Washington, the state of Oregon. Internationally, right now, you're being broadcast in South Africa, France, Italy, Germany, Belgium, the UK. We've got people logged in at Ramstein Air Force Base. I got people logged in Japan, in Osaka and Okinawa, along with Tokyo. We got people logged in New Zealand. You are logged in internationally right now. There are people on this broadcast worldwide listening to you and what you're saying. So we're hoping that this message gets out to the masses.
I hope so too, because like I said, we got to act like government doesn't exist. And Fatin and I have been doing this for a long time. And Bob and Fatin and Brother Mtume and Brother Pickett are dedicated to getting this information out. But what I want to stress is this is the last cycle of it, y'all. This is it. So where we're going now, this is a completely different situation. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I know we're in a place now that we're never coming back to. And that if the Black community in general, and I say the Black, I'm not discounting everybody else. I just want to be clear about that. But what I'm talking about is my people, our folk, right? We're usually the ones that are left out. We're the ones who are underserved. We're the ones who are ignored. If we don't build these mechanisms now, even if it's just on an individual basis, we are not going to be able to deal with what is coming down the pipe 3 to 4 months, 5 months ahead in the future. So one of the reasons why I'm doing this class is to get that together so that we can be ready to face the next pandemic. So we can be ready, like to say with Fatin, we didn't even get into, I guess I'll do that on the open line. You should bring up the racist stuff. We didn't even get into what they're talking about in terms of the racist front and some of the things that they're actually talking about. I go and sneak into their chat rooms, by the way, and I go on the dark web and I created a whole different identity for myself. I can say it because they'll never know who it is. And I go in and they don't even know there's a mole in their system. And I sit up and I talk to these people like one of them, and they tell you everything because they're stupid, right? And the thing is that I'm telling you, some of the things that they are talking about, it is crazy. And you got to understand that the FBI because they're basically the ones who are supposed to protect us against these folks, right? You got to understand something about the FBI. That's not their priority. Protecting Black people isn't the priority. Their priority want to protect the nation, and then Black people get protected. But this element is so dangerous. And let me tell you something else too. I'll do this on the open line. There's a tie to this element for the Ukraine. One of the biggest insults about the situation in the Ukraine and the U.S. giving them so much money is before this particular situation at Russia invading the Ukraine, that the Azov battalion, who are a bunch of neo-Nazis that are in the Ukraine, were actively telling white supremacists in the United States to come over there and train with them so that they could be ready to face the race war that's inevitable in the United States. Yeah. And that's in my Afro Prep book. So that's the sad part about us helping the Ukraine. Also, how the Ukrainian people treated a lot of the Black people who were there in the Ukraine when they had to evacuate, right? There's so much happening in this planet right now, and we're just not ready for it. And the one thing I can tell you is, if we get the ball rolling, all we got to do is get 1,000 of us to be the Johnny and Jane Appleseeds to get the word out. And once we get that ball rolling, we can get ourselves together, even in the entire nation, in that 3-month period. in that 5-month period before the stuff happens, and we can save a lot of people with what we do. And that's why I'm doing it.
That's right. And that's awesome. And I'm so glad you want to go on the open line to share that. But we would also love to have you come back on here to share more as well, because we talk a lot about, racism, classism, and so much more on our show. So we love to have you here as well whenever you're free.
It is 43 minutes past the hour. We have went 43 minutes over, and it was time well worth it. I have, with bated breath and great expectation, waited to get Brother Edwards on here to have conversation with our viewers. I thank you, Brother Fatim. As we get ready to close out this thing, Brother Fatim, I'm going to give you the reins to the ship. So steer us where you want to steer us, right, brother?
No, I just think a lot of information was shared today, and it's not about tooting our horn. It's about getting this information out. You see that Brother Eitan Edwards, IA and Life Protection Fundamentals Workshop this Saturday, June 28th or 29th? 29th, 1 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this is important information. And I've been saying this for the longest. And I don't want to seem like I was keeping this information, because I'm not. This information is not beholden to me or Joe or Sister Jackson, Brother Eitan. We're trying to get this information out to the folks out there. And knowledge comes in tiers, in a sense of tiers, where you at and where you're vibrating at. Some people are vibrating here, some people are up here, but you have to understand that it's always about learning. It's about research. It's about going out there and trying to understand, because there's layers of things and obstacles that are put in our way by the people that have the power or trying to keep us, keep us under their foot. So again, Brother Eitan, I thank you again more. You said it all. It's not much for us to really just say, but just to say thank you. I thank Sister Jax. I thank Joe, and I thank our audience for their participation. I'm sorry we didn't get to a lot of the comments there. This was about information today, and I wanted you to be introduced to Brother Eitan, that those that do not know him, there's a few. Sister Rhonda knows him from Open Line in New York and whatever, but those that have not gotten chance, and this is the kind of level of information that we talk about. Some of the information, like Eitan said, he couldn't discuss, he could not. Some of the information we talk about, I don't even know everything he knows, but I do know that we have to be responsible in a sense of giving out information. But trust us, it's not that we know it all, it's just that we know some of the things that are happening or are going to happen, and we just want to get this information out to you.
Exactly. And we're going to do it. Come to that class and you will learn everything. You'll learn what you need to know. Let me just put it to you that way. You need to know what the threats are in order for you to plan for them. You can't know what to do unless you know what's coming at you. It's just like a fight. If you, like, fighters plan for their fights, and we plan for our fights, and our fights are coming at us from all fronts. So the great thing about this class is, and this discipline, IA, is that it's designed to protect you. That's why I call it life protection. This is not prepping. If you want prepping, you can go someplace else. This is a whole different level. I've taught this stuff to people in the military. I've taught this to Special Forces, Green Berets, Navy SEALs. I've taught this class, and I've taught this stuff to people in the IC. I've learned from people in the IC. That's the thing. So it's something that I'm going to share with our community right now, because we actually need it. And I'm just hoping that you guys come, you support this, and then you'll help us with our Ikaya Eco Shelter Initiative. It's because I think Brother Joe, and let me close with this. Listen, y'all, we might have a terrible hurricane season. I'm glad that I'm very, very concerned about what could happen this year with a hurricane season down there in Louisiana, along the Carolinas, Florida, in
the Gulf Coast, the East Coast, the whole coast.
Yeah, I'm really, really concerned. Now, the last time I remember, I was in New York when I think it was the Hurricane Sandy hit, and I was in New York, and that was really bad. I saw places flooded. I saw downtown flooded. I don't know what we could get, but it's not looking good. So It's really, really important for you all to, if you can, come to this class, because you'll be able to prepare for this season. that we're actually moving into now. That's really the thing. That's immediate. That's going to happen. I'm telling you, I look at the NOAA stuff and I talk to climate scientists who are friends. We talk about this all the time. In fact, I've been telling people a hurricane season is going to be devastating. And I don't even know where it's going to happen, but I know what we need to do. And in this class, we're going to break down everything. So, just let you know. And I enjoyed being with you guys. Looking forward to coming back. Hate talking your ear off, but it's so much information. I don't know what else I can do.
It's exciting. We thank you. You did a phenomenal job. I want to hear more. So thank you. You did a phenomenal job. We appreciate you. Your class.
Say again, Joe?
No. Go ahead, Jax.
No, I was just saying, and best wishes with your class. Everybody, make sure you get online, sign up. It's virtual, right?
It's virtual.
Yes, virtual. So there's no excuses. Get on, attend the class so that you can learn and be prepared and ready for what is to come, because it's not about when it's coming or if it's coming. It's coming. So get ready.
Oh, yeah.
So it is 12 minutes to the top of the hour. We normally get in this mode and into this place where we do our final comments. So, Brother Eitan, we want to bring you back. You are welcome here whenever you want to come on. As they say in other languages, Mikase Sukase. This is your house too now. So welcome to the house of hashtag Truth Be Told. So, do you have some closing comments for us? Some closing words?
Just basically, hey, let's do this. It sounds like a Nike commercial, but let's just do this, right? Let's not talk about it. Let's be about it. We have to. We have no choice. And if we don't do it, then don't complain about what happens after the fact. Let's just move forward. Come join our class. Learn about the IPN. We've been around for 30 years now. We're all over the place, and we're making moves. And you come and join the class, and you'll be helping us to build and create shelters for our brothers and sisters in the Congo, our brothers and sisters all over the world, and even the people who are the migrants who are living in the cities in these flimsy tents and having hard-shelled, futuristic, beautiful, 100% recyclable, weather-proof shelters. If you've never seen anything like these before, trust, this is the creation of my son and I. And you'll be helping us do that. So look forward to coming back on the show, and look forward to seeing those of you who come and register for our class. And you can register at eitanedwards1@gmail.com, eitanedwards1@gmail.com. And if you want to just buy a ticket, you can get it at Cash App at Brooke Cobb Strider, BROOKECOBBSTRIDER. And look forward to seeing you there.
All right, Sister Jax, give me some closing words, my sister.
Yes, thank you once again. I'm so excited because I'm actually on my way out to the wilderness. So I've been in and out loading up my tent. My husband and my son are already en route to the woods. I will be there with about 55 children and a couple of adults for 24 hours off the grid. And we'll be doing so we'll be doing some amazing things with the children and some workshops, teaching them about primitive fire starting. We're going to have a cornhole tournament, swim in the lake. My husband's certified backpacking, wildlife camping instructor. So we'll also be canoeing instructor as well. So we'll be out there canoeing with a bunch of children from the inner city as well. And so we're about to have an amazing time. So I'm actually about to hit the road and be on the road.
That sounds like fun. I wish I could join you. Trust.
Yes. Look, give my number. You are more than welcome. My husband and I, do these kind of trips, and we teach them life skills and primitive skills and skills that they'll need in case they do have to go off the grid one day. We want them to know, because guess what? Sometimes a child shall lead the way, and some of these children can then go back and teach their parents how to be prepared and how to survive out in the wilderness, because there will come a time when we will be out in the wilderness again and need to know how to be sustainable and survive. So I'm on my way out, y'all. Wish me well. Make sure no bears, no snakes, anything crazy gets me. But this is what we do, and I can't wait to get there. So I will see you guys the next day, Lord's will. If nobody told you they love you today, thank you to our viewers. Know that Jax always, always loves you. I'll see you guys soon. Peace out. Signing off.
Bye-bye, all right, Sister Jax, be safe out there. And I got to hook you up with Brother Eitan's queen, Sister Kendall, because once Kendall met Hanifa, they just gelled and bond. And did their thing and stuff like that. But it's not much. Again, be prepared, y'all. Be prepared. I talk about this a lot. I really do. I thank Brother Aton today, and this show was for you all out there, and those that can join Brother Aton's class. He gave out the information. So again, thank Brother Aton. Again, I thank Joe and Sister Jax this morning. I just think that we said a lot that needed to be processed today, but the day was day one with Aton Edwards being on this show, and we thank him for being able to share this information, because there's been times when he said, "I'm going to shut this down because I have to go in survival mode," but he continues to take the responsibility to say, I'm going to continue to help people as long as I can help them. All right. So please take advantage of that. And we have to definitely bring him back, even though this book is out, Preparedness Now. We have to bring him back once Afro Prep, he finished. I think, Aton, where are you at with Afro Prep? Is that finished? Or
it's Afro Prep. The book is written. So, again, it would have been out a long time ago, but the book is written. It just had to be condensed, because initially it was like, I didn't want to talk about how long it was. I had to squeeze it down, and right now I'm going to submit the final manuscript to the publishers within the next few days. I've been busy kind of dealing with the class, so I haven't had the chance to do the work on that and some other things that I'm doing. And then they'll get the book out as quickly as possible, because it is a lot of information. Oh my God. It is like, it's like the magnum opus of these books in terms of the whole plan. So everything is in Afro Prep Now. It's not the Preparedness Now, as everything isn't in it, but Afro Prep Now is a different book because it's written for us. It's written for the needs that we have, the very specific needs of our community. And that's why I have the program. So like, for instance, if you want to come to the class, I'd say about 5 o'clock today, you can go to afroprepnow.com, and all of the information will be up there. That's our website, afroprepnow.com. That is for a program that is designed for basically surviving the climate crisis and surviving everything else in between. So when you go to that website, you can connect with us at the IPN. And the website explains what the Afro Prep Now program is. It explains what the book is. It explains everything that we're doing and why we're doing it, and how we're looking to form a global collective of Black Americans, also the entire diaspora. I've got people in the United Kingdom. I have people in Africa. I have people in 6 countries in Africa right now that are part of the Afro Prep program. I got people in Italy, Black folks. I got people, strangely enough, Black person from Bulgaria, 2 Black people from Bulgaria, and people all over Latin America and the Caribbean. And so we're starting this program now. We're starting it early. And, I encourage you to check that website, afroprepnow.com, and it'll be up. It's already up, but the information will be there by the end of the day. So look at it at the end of the day.
Thank you, Brother Aton. Joe, take us on out, brother. You got it.
Family, it is days like today. I want to once again encourage you. We're broadcasting live on Facebook Live. We're on YouTube Live. We're on Instagram Live. And you can go back and watch our prior episodes, including this one, because as soon as it's over, it's going to be up. This was very informative. Follow Brother Aton. Definitely be a part of the class that he has coming up, and stay informed. Stay informed. I always close out the show, as I always do, the same manner. Be better today than you were yesterday. Do something today that can help somebody in some way, some form, some shape, some fashion, that there's absolutely no way that they could pay you back. And always remember that there is no secret what God can do. What he has done for others, he will and he can do for you. For when God is with you, nothing or nobody can stand against you. I'm going to play a song I play a lot, because you got to do what Brother Aton said. You got to know that you got to pay attention, because something ain't right. Something ain't right. So be prepared, be ready, get yourself ready. Get yourself ready. As Sucker Free would say, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. We up out of here. Have a good one. We'll see you tomorrow for Freedom and Fun Friday. Peace.
All right, Brother Joe. Team Jack.
Hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right. The corruption has moved in view of my eyesight. Hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right. The corruption has moved in view of my eyesight.
Look, and as I lay me down to rest. I lay my sword, my lady lays upon my chest. It's been a crazy war. The devil's banging on my door, my dear. I hear the shots ring, lay on the floor. I don't fear anyone but the maker, cause we could never murder hate, but can murder a hater. What's a more American way than trying to give them a taste of their own medicine? Prevalent ethnic rebels, the revolution of melanin. Bust a move to the ghetto, we must improve the development. Brought some food for the fellowship, got the news on my brethren. Call lagoons in the government, come correct the corruption, break the racial construction, building up in the spirit of liberation. Give me life or I'ma take it, that's my human right. Universally, you and I, we could be unified, but when you speak in truth beyond your youth, they want you euthanized. Creeping through the night, is something moving right?
Hold up,
And shoulders,
wait a minute,
and shoulders.
something ain't right. The corruption has moved in view of my eyesight. Hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right. The corruption has moved in view of my eyesight.
Hold up, watch over me and my body, man. Trouble all around, can't trust nobody, man. Devil on my heels and they all wanna cross me. Loyalty to God and my loyalty to Bobby. I'm the Panther man, always lying on us to the cameraman. Death all around, pray we never light a candle. Knowing somebody gotta die for our freedom. Know they plotting on me, echo sounds of the battle ram. Ain't nobody I fear, I'm ready. Watch my back while I press on steady. Load my gun, full clip, no hesi. The government, the pigs, the deceit like a levy. Flood thy hood with the blood of the soldier. Poor black men, look over thy shoulder. COINTELPRO got the target on me, but we don't stand down to the people all free. Screaming.
Hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right. The corruption has moved in view of my eyesight. Hold up, wait a minute, now I wanna fight. The corruption has moved in view, and I can't let you get away. Can't let you get away. Hold up, wait a minute.